Chapter 26-22. The Return of the Lord. The citizens of Xingyao City watched with excitement as the entire scene unfolded before their eyes. From their point of view, it appeared as though the perverted commanding officer was using his massive warplane to shoot down every other plane in the air. To the people, these warplanes were their darkest nightmares that were filled with demons that gave them hell. Not only had the warplanes destroyed their homes, but they also killed their loved ones. The killing machines were indestructible. Furthermore, the commanding officer's warplane was the worst of all. Many women had been kidnapped on board and never returned. A woman once survived the tragedy as the officer abandoned her. Nonetheless, the poor woman was beaten up by the man. "Help," she repeated over and over again. Even though she was no longer imprisoned, she did not survive for more than an hour before succumbing to her injuries. She died in agony. The people tried to examine her injuries and noticed that her body was covered with cuts and bruises. Her private part was badly ripped as well. It was clear that what she had been through was tragic. Therefore, if the soldiers were considered as demons, the commanding officer would be the worst of them all. The people of Xingyao City absolutely loathed him, and could not wait for the day when he finally received the karma he deserved. It was no wonder that witnessing his entire fleet perish was such a joyous occasion for them. Nonetheless, they could not help but wonder what caused the feud. The massive warplane had always been surrounded by smaller ones. What changed? Even though the citizens were having the time of their life, the soldiers in charge of the smaller warcrafts were at loss of what to do. They reached out to their commanding officer requesting an explanation, but no one replied. In the control room of the large warcraft, the commanding officers felt completely hopeless. All the surrounding warplanes were no longer in sight. Perhaps his warplane was the only one left in the air. He was overwhelmed with loss and frustration. But there was no time to mourn, for the Lord had already turned her attention to him. The commanding officer was very tall and muscular, which was the complete opposite of Gu Zijia's slender and petite figure. However, her size was never an indication of her power. True enough, the commanding officer was completely intimidated by her intense glare. He staggered to his feet and took a few steps back. What are you going to do? I am only acting on the instructions given to me. This is not my plan. Gu Shijia was playing with her newfound silver gun in her hand. On whose instructions? Who is your leader? She casually asked. Admiral Guan Yanning. Where is he? He is at somewhere called Tianju Hall, trying to attack the place. Contact him. The officer's eyes glimmered with hope. He had been wanting to call the admiral, but dared not act recklessly under Gu Zijia's watch. He made his way to the control deck, but was stopped by Gu Shijia before he could press the call button. Wait. The officer was obviously shocked. He looked at her in confusion. With a tight smile, she said, "Get all of your men together in Tianhong Square. I have something for them to do first." Soon, the warplane was already heading to the square. The officer struggled with the decision. He knew how dangerous it would be for his men if he gathered them all together. The whole troop would be practically wiped out. Nonetheless, if he refused to do as told, he was not sure what the Lord would do with him. Chapter 26-23. The Return of the Lord 2. Will you let me live if I gather them all? That depends on how things unfold. Gu Shijia continued to play with the gun as she smilingly continued. I only know if you refuse to do as told, you will be dead sooner than you think. The officer was stunned. A brief moment later, he decided that it was better for others to die instead of having himself killed. Everyone, please gather yourself in Tianhong Square. He finally broadcasted the message. His voice echoed in every corner of Xingyao City through his vast broadcast system. It was loud and clear enough for everyone to hear him. The officer was a cruel and violent man. His ruthless figure was a scary sight to his men, so they would always obey his orders. However, the shooting in the air had somehow fragmented their faith in him. Nonetheless, after much thought, they still decided to go to Tianhong Square but armed. As for the common people, they also heard the broadcast, though they were not the targeted audience. Driven by curiosity, some of them actually followed the soldiers to the square as well. Certainly, the people did not get too close to the square. On the other hand, the soldiers did not seem to care that they were being followed. The commanding officer's warplane finally stopped above the square, which was everything Gu Shijie wanted. "Contact the admiral in charge," Gu Shijie finally said. The officer was not sure of what she wanted to do, but was too afraid to question her intention. Swiftly he started contacting the admiral. As these foreigners from the future had very advanced technology, it only took seconds for a man to appear on the screen. It was a 5D display, so the man looked very lifelike. It was as if he was truly standing in the cabin. The man was very tall, at least 6 feet and 2 inches tall. His body was firm and muscular, toned enough to carry his gray uniform in the finest way. On his shoulders, a line of golden badges glistened with bright lights, as if showing off his achievements. His sleeves were slightly folded, too, thus revealing his strong hands. On his wrist, he seemed to be wearing something that resembled a blue spiritual stone. He had a handsome face. Surprisingly, he had the face of an Asian man. All the foreign invaders that Gu Shijie had met thus far were Westerners, though they had Asian-sounding names. Finally, she was able to see someone of the same descent. The color of his sharp eyes was black, and they swept across the cabin like an eagle with keen sight. "Meng Hui, who is this?" He finally left his eyes on Gu Shijie. The officer's name was actually Meng Hui. He stood at attention as he spoke. She seems to be the lord of this world." The man was caught by surprise and immediately became alerted. "The lord? What is she doing in your vessel? What happened?" Meanwhile, Gu Shijie was waving at him. "Hi." The man was dumbfounded by her carefree nature. Gu Shijie continued smilingly. "You have been giving my people hell. Haven't you thought that one day you would get the karma you deserve?" The admiral definitely did not see this coming. "You claim to have come from Earth, so you should be aware that everything you do comes with a price." "Meng Hui, kill her now," the man ordered. Meng Hui was on the verge of breaking down. If he could, he would have killed her already. Hence, his admiral's instructions would be felt unfulfilled. "Admiral, I cannot kill her. She is not afraid of any of our weapons." Meng Hui's face was pale as a sheet. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a few steps back like a timid rodent. The admiral remained unconvinced. "Bastard, if you don't kill her, I will kill you." Meng Hui was struggling to respond. "I dare not." Abruptly, he turned to her with 2 additional guns in his hands and started firing at Gu Shijie. He wanted to take advantage of the situation since she was not prepared. There was no wizardry barrier to keep her safe this time. So many flashes of laser beams could be seen launching at Gu Shijie all at once. Chapter 26-24. The Return of the Lord 3. All these laser beams, unlike the normal physical bullets, traveled at the speed of light. As soon as it was launched at a nearby target, it was already considered a hit. It was the fastest kind of weapon in the world, so the commanding officer reckoned the Lord must be dead. There was a nasty grin on Meng Hui's face once he put down his weapons. However, his satisfaction did not last too long as a gun was already pointed at him from the back. "What are you smiling at?" Gu Shijie asked nonchalantly. Meng Hui was at a loss for words. Anxiously, he tried to turn away, but his body was trembling uncontrollably. In the blink of an eye, he could feel something cold against his wrists. A sharp pain made him realize that he could no longer feel his hands. In fact, they were now on the floor. The guns that he had used to fire at Gu Shijie were now in her possession, while blood continued to ooze out from both of his wounds. The pain was not describable. Intuitively, the commanding officer wanted to stop the wounds from bleeding, but he soon realized that he no longer had his hands to help him with anything. "Help me," he called out to the admiral in a desperate attempt. Meanwhile, the second officer was already shocked to the core. He wanted to help but could not step forward for fear that his life would come to an abrupt end. Gu Shijie pointed both of her guns at Meng Hui and his second officer. "Both of you, make your way to the cabin door." "What are you trying to do?" the admiral demanded in anger. He was clearly annoyed with Gu Shijie. Gu Shijie responded contemptuously. "You will soon find out. Boys, come with me." The admiral knew that something was not right. The Lord did not seem like someone who would show mercy to her enemies. He was sure that she would kill them. In fact, he was right. Gu Shijie pushed the two men out of the vessel and made them beg their men to save them. His men were not stupid. Upon seeing how beaten their leaders were, they did not even try to step forward. Sternly, Gu Shijie watched as the crowd contemplated their next move. Meng Hui was infuriated by the men's lack of loyalty. In good times, these men were the ones who often showered him with undivided attention. Now that he was in great danger, none of them stepped forward to help. He could not help but curse at the cowards. Unfortunately, he never had the chance to finish his sentence as a laser beam had punched a hole through his head. His second officer did not escape death either. He was killed before he could even retreat. There is an intruder who has just killed our commanding officer. We must avenge him. The men refused to save the officer's life, but were brave enough to fire laser beams at the intruder after the death of their leader. Gu Shijie kicked the second officer's body to shield her from the impending laser beams before teleporting to safety. In the next second, she found herself mid-air, above the people shooting at her, and started shooting at them with both her guns. It was a brutal slaughter. Her shooting was accurate and precise. Every shot took at least one life. She was too fast and ruthless that none of the soldiers could escape. They tried to shoot at her, but none of them managed to hit her. There were about 300 soldiers in the square, but none of them survived the massacre. Their bodies could be seen lying around in pools of blood. "My lord! Oh, it is the Lord! The Lord has returned! My lord!" Some could be heard sobbing in excitement as they called out for the Lord. "My lord, you are finally here. Our starry crescent land is safe." Hope had finally returned as the people watched the massacre from far behind. Never had they expected that Gu Shijie would show up at the very last moment. Their hearts were filled with immense joy and delight. Tears of joy and relief started rolling down their eyes involuntarily. Chapter 26-25. The Return of the Lord 4. Once Gu Shijie was done with the soldiers, the people of the Starry Crescent Land all ran forward and knelt before her. By that time, they were all weeping uncontrollably. From that simple act alone, Gu Shijie could clearly tell the suffering that they must have gone through while she was away. The tragic sight pained her. Perhaps, if she had returned within the given time that she was supposed to, the place would not be doomed with this unfortunate incident. She took a deep breath before making an announcement. "Yes, I am back. I will ask those foreigners to compensate you for all the pain that you have gone through, and I will bring peace back to land." As soon as she was finished, she turned around and returned to the warplane. In just that brief moment, the news of the return of the Lord was widespread to every corner of Starry Crescent Land. The news had certainly come as a comfort to the brave souls who were still fighting valiantly to protect their land. They were tired and in despair after holding on for so long, but the news came as a powerful boost to their motivation. Their fighting spirit had returned once more. "The Lord is back, and we shall be saved," they thought. The people of the Starry Crescent Land were hopeful again. The Admiral's display was still active in the cabin. He looked at her sternly in the eye and said, "How did you know how to use our weapons? Are you one of us?" Gu Shijie did not answer his question, but instead, took full control over the warplane and slowly raised it into the air. "You are not from Earth, are you? You are only pretending to be one of them," she challenged. "Don't we look like humans from Earth?" He seemed to have been caught a little surprise. "You do look like one, but perhaps you were not born to be one. I can tell that you have spent some time on Earth before, but the way you behave is unlike us." "How can you know?" The Admiral was curious. Gu Shijie gave him a tight smile. At first, she thought that these people were humans from the future. It was only until she saw Meng Hu's pupils in his eyes when he was angered that she noticed an oddity. That instantly sparked her suspicion. From then on, she tried to infuriate him further, and even scare him. Not only did Meng Hu's eyes squeezed into tiny slits in times of distress, but his second officer also had the same vertical pupils too. Although the slits only lasted for a split second, Gu Shijie was observant enough to notice the tiny changes. In order to find out more, she had to go after the soldiers in Xingyao City, to see if the same changes applied to them when in fear. She noticed many of them, too, had vertical pupils in times of distress. Some of the weak ones had the color of their eyes change from emerald green to golden yellow in an instant. It became clear to her that they were not humans. They were some of the most advanced alien species, apparently. Hey, why are you keeping quiet? I want to know how you found out about us. The Admiral was eager to know. Smilingly, he acted like he was not annoyed by the fact that their secret had just been uncovered. Gu Shijiu finally turned around and looked him in the eye. The screen displaying the Admiral was almost within touching distance, but he was merely a visual representation. The man could probably be thousands of miles away for all Gu Shijiu knew. How did you come here? This was all that Gu Shijiu cared about. Have you heard about the concept of wormholes? The Admiral started to get talkative. One can use a wormhole to travel from one dimension to another. In fact, one can even travel from one time frame to another. In other words, the whole universe was all but a huge playground for them to roam around freely with the help of the wormholes. They even had the ability to break through the confinement of time and travel from one era to another. Gu Shijiu frowned a little as she recalled an article that she once read from a magazine talking about the possibility of Earth being visited by some advanced alien species, which was further reinforced by some undecipherable pieces of evidence that these creatures had left behind. It was not strange for the starry crescent land to have some alien visitors, but she could somewhat tell that there was more behind what she had just heard. Chapter 26-26. The woman was absolutely brilliant. The starry crescent land had never been visited by the beings from outer space before. In fact, high up in the skies, there was a unique barrier shielding the land from any invasions by alien species. Her time-traveling experience from the future was a very rare case. Certainly, what happened with Long Fan and Long Sai was one of the rare exceptions as well. The thought of being able to use wormholes to travel through space and time was certainly troubling to Gu Shijiu. With this revelation, she started thinking that all the so-called coincidences that she had experienced did not just happen without an apparent connection. There seemed to be someone behind the scenes, secretly controlling the sequence of every event like a puppeteer. The firmament stone once told her that a lord was not allowed to leave the starry crescent land for more than 6 months. Otherwise, unfortunate events would unfold. This time around, the unfortunate event was the invasion of these aliens, which seemed to be some advanced species from another planet. Could the culprit behind all these plots be the man who was disguised as Zhu Duqing? While Gu Shijiu was still deep in contemplation, the Admiral still had his eyes locked on her. It was clear to him that she was baffled by what he had just shared. With that thought in mind, he started laughing out loud. "What is your name?" he suddenly asked in a rather seductive tone. Gu Shijiu simply ignored him and continued to maneuver the warplane. The Admiral was quite impressed by her skills. "You came as a surprise to me. When people talked about you, I honestly thought that you were just a con with glorified stories." "What an idiot," Gu Shijiu replied sarcastically. "Is the Lord allowed to speak so maliciously?" He sounded surprised. "I have a handful of spiteful remarks for you. Are you interested to hear more?" "You are truly unbelievable." The Admiral sighed. "That is because your brain's capacity is too underdeveloped to see anything coming from me." The conversation had temporarily come to an abrupt end with that final nail in the coffin. The Admiral remained silent for a while before he uttered another word. "Where are you going?" he suddenly asked. "I am looking for an open space so that we can have a proper fight." "How did you know I was coming for you?" The Admiral was mildly astonished again. Gu Shijiu merely frowned. "The only point of this conversation is so that you can track my position, right?" The Admiral was impressed. The woman was absolutely brilliant. For a moment, he looked at Gu Shijiu with a sense of admiration. "My lord, you should know that it is hard for you to change the established order of this place alone. We have claimed the entire starry crescent land as ours. You are not even a native here, so why should you risk your life for these irrelevant people? If you wish to keep your power and status in this world, I have a suggestion for you. It is one which allows you to have the best of both worlds." "What is it?" "Be my woman, and I shall allow you to maintain control of this place." Smilingly, Gu Shijiu took out a mirror and put it right in front of the Admiral. "Here, take a closer look at yourself in the mirror. Do you really think that you even worth my time?" The Admiral was completely speechless. Her rejection had shattered him more than her previous snide remarks. In fact, the admiral had always been proud of his manly charm. Many women had willingly surrendered themselves to him. Having women fight each other to get his attention was just a normal day for him. This rejection was the first time he was given the cold shoulder. The well-traveled man had met countless women after years of wandering from planet to planet. Love affairs would certainly unfold wherever he stopped by. And he was able to charm the beautiful and the bright. He had captured the hearts of many different types of women. Some were shy and quiet. Some were bold and sexy. No matter their character, none of them had escaped his charm. Their hearts were completely surrendered to the man, and they would willingly do anything for him. Chapter 26-27. The lust of conquest. Gu Shijie was the most beautiful woman that he had ever encountered. He never knew the existence of an ethereal beauty until he met her. As an additional bonus, she was exceptionally bright. The lust of conquest burned like wildfire inside him. He wanted the woman badly. He needed to make her his 138th lover. Gu Shijie, remember, my name is Guan Yanning. Remember it well. Guan Yanning introduced himself in an overbearing tone. Gu Shijie was surprised by his sudden change of tone, but she was not really bothered by the man. The admiral must have done a background check on her, so it was only natural that he knew her name. Gu Shijie, you are an exceptional woman. However, your ability to control one warplane cannot bring you victory. Come and have a look at what is in front of you. You have been surrounded. With a white glove on his hand, he pointed his finger to the front of Gu Zhijia's warplane. Gu Shijie looked out and saw the emergence of some warplanes in the clouds. She had indeed been surrounded from every direction. There was no way for her to escape using the warplane. All the surrounding warplanes were almost the same size as the one she was controlling, if not bigger, especially the one that was blocking her way from the front. It was as massive as a fort and glistened with silvery sparkles. There were 8 missiles at each side of the warplane, and one of the firearms happened to be in the shape of a triangle. Flashes of blue light indicated that the weapon was already aiming at her, presumably ready to fire. Obviously, the giant piece of machinery was the leading one. She could immediately assume that Guan Yanning was in that particular warplane. Do you see the triangular firearm? That is a BR atomic laser beam. Once fired, the monochromatic light will surround your entire warplane and kill only the living things on board. Nothing has managed to escape the deadly attack thus far. The added beauty of this weapon is that the warplane will not be harmed in any way. When you are gone, I shall manually control the warplane and bring it back to our base. So, now that you are aware of the consequences of your options, I believe you will be able to make a better decision. What do you plan to do? Guan Yanning seemed to care about the woman more than he should. He was even offering her a lifeline when he should just terminate her. Meanwhile, Gu Shijie squinted her eyes at him. Although she was not sure about the functionality of a BR atomic laser beam, she believed that what he said about his plan was true. With a smile, she turned off the communication facility and made Guan Yanning disappear, so that she no longer had to see him in the cabin and listen to his endless blabbering. Also, she no longer wished to be monitored. Confidently, she pressed a few buttons on her own warplane, which triggered a few missiles to launch. Bam, bam, bam. She started attacking. First things first, she fired at the massive warplane. It seemed to be prepared for the attack as an alpha ray was released almost instantly to destroy all the incoming attacks. Nonetheless, the massive warplane had yet to attack in response. In stark contrast, the pilots of the surrounding warplanes could no longer keep their calm. All of them pointed their weapons at Gu Zhijia's warplane and were ready to shoot, but no shots were fired. Guan Yanning must have given them some instructions and stopped them from firing. Gu Shijie did not despair. If she could not take out the big one, she could always attack the smaller ones and destroy as many as she could. Therefore, she changed course and pointed her weapons at another warplane and fired. Surprisingly, the warplane was also shielded by the same alpha ray. The defensive system was extraordinary and could protect the neighboring warplane from all the strikes. However, Gu Shijie could tell that the intensity of the alpha ray was not as strong as the one that protected the massive warplane. After a series of tireless assaults, Gu Shijiu finally managed to hit the back of one of the smaller vessels and caused a fire. This action triggered the pilots of the other warplanes that wanted to attack Gu Shijiu at once. All of them started firing at her vessel. Apparently, it became obvious to Gu Shijiu that what she had learned about the warplane she operated was only very basic. Chapter 26-28. This was going to be a deadly fight. After all, Gu Shijiu had only learned how to maneuver the warship. She did not really understand its other functions. For instance, she knew how to shoot, but did not know how to utilize the defensive protection of the warplane. There were more than 100 buttons on the console, so it was impossible for her to learn everything in such a short period. Thus her ship also caught fire. And it was not a small fire like the one she inflicted on her opponent. Gu Shijiu, if you don't surrender, I will launch the BR atomic light at your ship. You will not even have the time to regret your decision. I will count to 3. The sound emerged from a speaker inside Gu Zijia's ship that blared the voice of Guan Yanning. Gu Zijia's response was to raise her hand and destroy the device. As it was too late for her to learn the controls now, she drove her own ship right into the lead warplane like a meteor. This was going to be a deadly fight. Guan Yanning had never seen such a talented person that was not afraid of death. Although his warship was much bigger than the one that Gu Zijiu piloted, if it was hit by the momentum of a meteor, it could also crash and fall. And even if it did not fall, the ship would surely be damaged. If Guan Yanning's ship was to get damaged on this planet, it could not be repaired as they did not have the specific equipment needed. Therefore, Guan Yanning had always been very good at protecting his own ships. His character was likened to a junior president who just bought his first luxury car. Even a few tiny little scratches would surely cause him to feel distressed. He was nervous and started to shoot at the incoming warplane. However, since he still wanted to catch her alive, he was aiming for the control panel of her ship because if he could somehow deactivate it, there would be another set of controls that would be activated on his ship that would allow him to control the plane. If it were not the last resort, he would prefer not to destroy the incoming ship. After all, in this world, every ship was a powerful weapon. Firing at Gu Shijiu with the hope of not having to destroy her ship, he watched as the warplane swayed violently, but suddenly came to an abrupt stop. He succeeded. Guan Yanning raised his eyebrows slightly, and immediately turned on the remote control system. He took control of the ship opposite his, and then reactivated the 5D dialogue device. His figure reappeared on the ship at once, and he scanned the place to look for Gu Shijiu, only to find that she had disappeared. Guan Yanning was speechless. In a frenzy, he wanted to turn on the various monitors on her ship remotely, but alarms sounded on his own ship. Quickly, the man turned back and noticed that a white light illuminated behind him, showing Gu Zijia's image. The woman actually snuck onto his ship. Guan Yanning's facial expression changed, and he quickly raised his hand and pressed on a button that activated a layer of protection over the console of the ship and covered him and his subordinates on the ship. Gu Shijiu had cast a spell to make herself invisible, but she did not expect this ship to have such high-end equipment that could reveal her presence. The cover that Guan Yanning had made did not crack at all even after she took 2 shots at it in quick succession. It must be tough to destroy. This time, she used her own palms to break the protective layer. The power of the great deity was not the same as the weapon that she had used before. Although it might not be able to destroy the world, it actually shook the entire ship and almost plunged it into the sea. The admiral was obviously dumbstruck. He did not expect human beings to be able to exert such a strong force with their bare hands. Meanwhile, his people desperately tried to control the ship to stabilize it in the air. Fortunately, his layer of protection was strong enough to keep them safe. Otherwise, her 2 palms could definitely turn them into meatballs. This power was more deadly than he ever expected. Chapter 26-29. This was too scary. Guan Yanning was stunned by the immense power he witnessed Gu Shijiu exert on the ship. Over the past year, he had toiled with many male masters in the Starry Crescent land. Several of them were skillful enough to destroy one of his small warships. That act alone had already impressed him a lot. Nevertheless, no matter who the great admiral encountered, none of them were capable enough to enter into his ship. In fact, They could not even come close as they were always suppressed by his array of weapons. Now a small group of those people who dared to challenge him had hidden in Tianju Hall, and a wizardry barrier protected them. Fearing the power of the enemy, the admiral was certain that they would not choose to leave Tianju Hall anytime soon. Guan Yanning had been attacking the wizardry barrier there in order to conquer the men who dared to challenge him. However, the barrier stood firm no matter what method he used. He had spent a reasonable amount of time analyzing the composition and structure of the wizardry barrier, but did not come up with any useful information as to how to take it down. In the end, he just chose to destroy his other targets in order to lure the people out of Tianju Hall. Besides, he believed that those people would come out one day. After all, the resources that they had available inside the barrier would be exhausted sooner or later. The size of the wizardry barrier that secured the place was hardly anything to brag about. Therefore, Guan Yanning estimated that the resources inside would not be able to sustain the hundreds of people there for long. Whenever one of them attempted to leave, he would make sure a ship was prepared to enter and slaughter every last person inside. By his estimates, he expected a breach in the wizardry barrier within a month from when it was formed. Nonetheless, it had already been 3 months, and he had not seen anyone come out. The admiral grew anxious and wondered how long it would take him to tear down Tianju Hall and be the rightful ruler of the Starry Crescent land with no one else left to challenge him. But just then, the Lord showed up. Gu Zijia's sudden emergence had changed Guan Yanning's plans. He was under the impression that if he could catch their leader, these peasants would eventually surrender themselves. Unfortunately for the admiral, it was completely beyond his imagination that the Lord would be so powerful. Guan Yanning had thought that he had possessed the most modern equipment in the Starry Crescent land. Since he had a bigger gun, he believed he could control everything. He would simply attack anyone that did not submit to him and destroy them. Who would have guessed that he would have met his match along the way? Even though the admiral did not use to believe in immortal beings, he was certain that the person in front of him definitely fit the bill. Prior to this, Guan Yanning used to believe that immortals were simply aliens with special abilities, and that they had been wrongly exalted by fools who could not tell them apart. Watching Gu Shizhou hijack his ship and use her bare palms to cause more damage to the barrier that he had in place compared to his own modern weapons, he realized that it was time for him to believe that immortals really did exist. The revelation was pounded into his brain repeatedly as Gu Shizhou continued to destroy the unprotected areas inside of his warplane. Technically, the inside of the warplane was designed to be just as strong as the outside. No guns could destroy it. Hence, watching Gu Shizhou tear it apart with her own hands hit him to the core. This was too scary, in fact. Guan Yanning did not care about being a gentleman anymore. He pressed a few buttons on the console, which released a toxin that could destroy all living things in the cabin. The toxic sprayed in the cabin like rain and covered almost every spot. He quickly looked to see if Gu Shizhou would be affected by the toxin, only to find that the woman in white had suddenly disappeared. Guan Yanning and his subordinates remained silent, but deep in their thoughts, they wondered where the woman went. Although they were protected from the toxins, they did not dare to step out of the barrier until the toxic had evaporated entirely. From where they stood, Guan Yanning attempted to check the monitors of the other cabins in his ship to see if Gu Shizhou had somehow repositioned herself. Instead of finding any oddities in his own ship, the admiral noticed that something was going on in the ship beside him. That warship was the closest to the main ship, and the pilot had been loyally guarding his leader's warplane in case of an external attack. At this moment, it suddenly swayed in the sky as though it was caught in a hurricane. Guan Yanning suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart, and soon his feeling turned into reality. The warplane was headed towards his vessel at lightning speed. The admiral's facial expression changed abruptly as he knew that there was no way for him to deactivate the controls on that ship. The only way to stop the attack was to fire at the incoming ship. Suddenly, a white light emerged from the admiral's ship and covered his loyal subordinate's warplane. In a matter of seconds, the light engulfed the plane along with anything that was inside of it. Chapter 2630. The Blue Fox family. Guan Yanning was almost ready to vomit blood from the sight of what he had just done. His loyal subordinate had perished along with another warplane. He finally understood how Gushijio was able to do everything that she did. She clearly must possess the ability to teleport at will. She must have made her way into the unprotected warplane and caught his fellow comrade off guard. Understanding her intentions, she naturally steered the warplane towards him. Fortunately for the admiral, his response was swift. If the man had not sacrificed his subordinates, perhaps that would have spelled the end for the parties on both ships. At this point, he could not help but wonder if he managed to take down the ghost-like lord with his perished companions. Nevertheless, this optimistic idea was quickly crushed by a hit of reality. Another neighboring warplane seemed to have lost control as well. The admiral did not need to guess where its next destination would be. Since the ship was not very far away, and it traveled hundreds of times faster than supersonic, it only took a blink of an eye for the ship to rush over and crash into the admiral's ship. There was no time for Guan Yining to take control of it. Therefore, he had to fire at it again and disintegrate his own warship into dust. The admiral was now even more distressed than before. This type of ship was certainly very costly, and he had taken out 2 of them in quick succession. Once a ship was destroyed, it meant that this firepower available here was also reduced. The only way to assemble more warplanes was for the admiral to return to his original planet and time frame to retrieve one. Should the current predicament continue, it was only a matter of time before Guan Yining became a commander with no subordinates. He figured that this lord must secretly be a devil or a demon who had ill intentions for the world, but now was not the time for him to get fixated over that. He needed to sort out this mess and prevent another one of his warplanes from going down. Quickly, Guan Yining made up his mind and ordered his subordinates to destroy the operating systems of their ships so that he could manually take over. He then remotely controlled the other warplanes in batches and promptly evacuated them. Despite being evacuated, the people on board the ships were noticeably still worried. Other than the main ship operated by the admiral, the other warplanes did not have the same protection and would be prone to takeover from the lord. No one knew her current location, which made them tremble even more. The subordinates on the other ships immediately put on something similar to a night vision goggle, which was 1,000 times more accurate than the ordinary night vision devices available during the time period in the Starry Crescent land. As long as Gushijio had heat radiating from her body, there was no way that she could hide even with her invisibility spell. Nonetheless, the naturally lord seemed to understand how these goggles functioned. Using her abilities, she could manually control her heat signature, so that she would be able to move under the radar and remain untraceable. The men looked like fools with their eyewear. Even with their modern gear, they were not foolish enough to stray away from keeping vigilant. They made sure to keep an eye on their surroundings all the way until their ship reached the main station. Everyone was relieved at that point, as they felt that they had escaped death. It seemed that the devil was finally gone. Guan Yining was physically puking out blood once his ship came to a stop. 8 of his warplanes, along with nearly 50 of his loyal soldiers, had been taken down. They were all gone. When he got off the ship, he could barely keep himself together. However, that did not stop a soldier from running over to him. "General, the king of Blue Fox family wants to see you." Guan Yining was utterly miserable, and he had a feeling that things would be about to get worse. "What does he want?" "Tell him that I am exhausted. I am not going." "The king said that he knows about the lord." Guan Yining paused and finally turned around. "Where is he? Take me to him." He followed the soldier and strode forth angrily. Little did he know that Gushijio was tailing him all the way. Understanding ourselves and knowing our enemy can only increase our chances of winning a battle. She still knew too little about this group of people, and the best way to learn more was to explore their nest. After surveying the place briefly, an impulse hit her. She had been here before. This was the territory of the Blue Fox clan. Had these aliens conquered them? What about the king of Blue Fox family? What about the people? Had they been killed? Chapter 2631. The Blue Fox Family 2. The Blue Fox family had always been an exceptional existence in the Starry Crescent land. Due to their unique nature, they were generally very cautious of who they married and had a particular way of practicing. Every member of the clan was very skilled, but they would always be mysterious and keep a low profile. The Blue Fox clan was also known to have a mysterious wizardry barrier that could prevent any outsiders from breaking into their territory. Gu Shijiu was invited by Lan Weihu to go in once, so she had seen the place before. The architecture on the inside was completely different from anything that she had seen before. Many buildings looked like pyramids that were equipped with a lightning rod at the top. When she first saw it, Gu Shijiu wondered if the Blue Fox clan was somehow linked with the Egyptians. Nonetheless, that question was answered rather easily since all the members looked Chinese. Hence, she did not bother to pursue that idea any further. Knowing the heritage and mysterious power possessed by the clan, Gu Shijiu thought that the Blue Fox community would be the last to collapse in the Starry Crescent land. She never expected the place to become Guan Yining's residence, and even host the other outsiders. Using her spiritual power, Gu Shijiu levitated into the air to have a better look at her surroundings. She found that the pyramid-like structures of the Blue Fox family still existed, and each of them stood as orderly as before. It did not look like the place had been taken over through any sort of battle. Besides noticing the pyramids, she also saw Admiral Guan Yining walking hurriedly with a soldier next to him. She squinted her eyes slightly as she just could not believe how freely he traveled around the place. It would only take her a minute to shoot and kill Guan Yining on the spot. But, would she want to shoot? She pinched her fingers together to prepare herself to cast the necessary spell in case she decided to go through with it. Just then, she heard Guan Yining curse. "Does Lan Yu really think he is the king of this place? Heck. I'm so tired, and he still expects me to go over." Gu Shijiu was caught by surprise, and her body went stiff at the remark. She also loosened her fingers in her sleeves. Lan Yu, the current king of the Blue Fox family, was once the fiancé of Lan Weihu. He had competed with Yan Chen to get Lan Weihu's heart, but after that he gave up and returned to the Blue Fox clan. Gu Shijiu had previously befriended him. After several activities together, she had quite a good impression of him as she felt that he was a person who was good at judging situations. She would not be too surprised to find out that this man was the culprit behind all this mess. But how did Lan Yu get involved with Guan Yining? And why did the admiral refer to him as the king? She bit her thin lips and followed the two men to learn more. The territory that belonged to the Blue Fox clan was vast. It was almost the equivalent of a small country, with a radius of about 5,000 or 6,000 square kilometers. Remembering the layout of the place, Gu Shijiu could tell at once that Guan Yining's residence was built in the most central position of the land that belonged to the Blue Fox clan. Gu Shijiu remembered that this place used to be a huge empty square land. It was the place where the Blue Fox people came to worship. The square was about 100 kilometers wide, and the end could not be seen. The square tiles that paved the floor were covered with a kind of sapphire. At that time, the square was very eye-catching. But the main attraction was the jade blue foxes that surrounded the place of worship. The jade blue foxes were huge and came in different shapes and sizes. Each one was at least a few feet high. Although their postures were different, all their heads were raised up high as if they were looking up at the sky to worship their creator. Whenever the Blue Fox people had their prayers, they worshipped these jade blue foxes. Lan Weihu used to explain to Gu Shijiu that this was the totem of the Blue Fox family, and asked her if they were beautiful. Gu Shijiu did not feel that they were very beautiful per se, but she did find them a bit strange. The fact that they were all looking to the sky was another mystery that she pondered as well. Of course, the carving and posture of these jade blue foxes were a lot more high-end than the typical stone statues. Since it was a totem of the family, Gu Shijiu merely observed it from a distance, and did not pay too much attention to them. Chapter 2632. The Blue Fox Family 3. Back then, Gu Shijiu could also tell that there was a mysterious magnetic field on the square, but she could not sense what the mystery was at the time. After she left the Blue Fox clan, a series of events happened to the group, but she did not pay much attention to it. Nonetheless, she still had a deep impression of the place and remembered the general layout here well. Now the sapphire tiles in the square were still there, but the jade blue fox sculptures had disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by an extraordinary dome-shaped building. This structure had 8 metal spikes on the top of it as well as a fox's face. The materials used to build the structure were also something that Gu Shijie had never seen before. It was like a very new type of composite material that was blue in color like water under the sun, and was not made of soil or gold. Gu Zijie's line of sight fell on the face of the fox on top of the structure, which looked similar to the blue fox's totem that she had seen before. At first glance, she could tell that this building was newly built. Perhaps it was a gift from Guan Yanning's people. After all, the material of this building did not belong to this world. The structure of the building resembled a place that was occupied by a general or commander. If Gu Shijie were not mistaken, it should be the base of these outsiders. The facilities here were extremely advanced and were guarded by 4 sergeants at the door. When they saw Guan Yanning coming over, they saluted him together in unison. Guan Yanning just nodded slightly to acknowledge them. He then used his pupils to open the door to the dome-shaped building. Even the door was covered with the face of a fox. It did not open from the sides nor the top or bottom. Instead, a hole seemed to emerge from right in the middle of the door. After entering, the door immediately closed, preventing any intruders from following him in. When the admiral had opened the door, Gu Shijie was standing invisibly behind him and wanted to follow him in using her teleportation ability. However, she did not expect the building to block her ability to teleport. In the end, she merely crashed into the door. Although the door did not look like it was made of any particularly hard material, Gu Shijie found that half of her arm was faintly numb after the collision. Upon closer observation, she noticed that the door seemed to be made of a liquid, which was rather odd. Without having to put much thought into it, she could immediately tell that the liquid was poisonous. Fortunately, Gu Zijie's body was highly resistant to poisons. Nevertheless, it had, unfortunately, alerted the 4 sergeants guarding the entrance. Since Gu Shijie had used her invisibility spell, they could not see anything suspicious. The men quickly searched around the vicinity, but found no target that they had to abolish. In the end, they simply looked at each other confusedly. What the hell hit the door? Was that the wind? Bullshit. The wind has no such power. It sounded a person had hit the door. I am quite sure that it was a person. How can we not see it? If it is a person, they can't escape our eyes. Was it a ghost? Nonsense. How can there be ghosts in this world? There may not have a ghost in our world, but the people of this world seem to fear them. Furthermore, the people on this planet seem to practice some kind of sorcery. It is hard for us to say that there are no ghosts here. We have killed too many people. Perhaps some people have turned into ghosts and are looking for revenge. Heck, you don't scare yourself. Even a ghost cannot make its way into this place. Yet it can't go in, so it will wander outside the door. What's the use? I am not afraid of it. If the ghost dares to come over, I will shatter it into pieces. To be honest, we have always been lone rangers. Even when we were in the Blue Fox planet, we never put the king as a priority. Why are we worshipping Lan Yu as the king in this stupid starry crescent land? We even allowed him to live in our best facilities. Although the Blue Fox family is also a descendant of the Blue Fox planet, they have been living here for 1,000 years, and their bloodline has long been impure. I really don't know what our leader is thinking. Chapter 2633. Meet again, you idiot. Our ancestors of the Blue Fox family here on the Starry Crescent Land are from the bloodline of the royal family on the Blue Fox planet. These Blue Fox descendants have cultivated some extraordinary spiritual power. Perhaps our leader wants to capitalize on this benefit to take down an enemy. Hush. Stop gossiping. Do you want to die? Someone finally put an end to the discussion. Nonetheless, by that time, Gu Shijie had already heard a lot. Her heart suddenly sank in her chest. From what she gathered, she learned that the Blue Fox family was not original inhabitants of this continent, but came from the Blue Fox planet. Apparently, they came from the same planet as these invaders. In fact, they belonged to the royal family of there. She remembered that when she was in the lower bound with Di Fui in the past, they once discussed the origins of the Blue Fox family. At that time, Di Fui told her that the Blue Fox family was somewhat different from the people of this world. Their cultivation skills and ethnic land were somewhat strange. However, the Blue Fox family had long existed. At the very least, at the beginning of Difoy's memory, they had already lived on this continent. This group of people kept a very low profile. They did not easily befriend any outsiders and did not interfere in the politics of the people. Therefore, Difoy never cared about them. There were many other ethnic groups on the mainland, including demons, monsters, and mermaids. Perhaps Difoy only treated them as part of the biodiversity of the land. On the other hand, Gu Shizhou was generally not very concerned about the different species in the Starry Crescent land. After all, she was actually an alien here and not an aboriginal. However, she could not accept the fact that the invaders had almost destroyed the entire Starry Crescent land. They had also mistreated the people here. They were aggressors and thugs. Since these invaders were from the Blue Fox planet, was their arrival also related to the Blue Fox family? What role did Lan Yu play in it? Numerous questions wandered in Gu Zijia's mind. She squinted her eyes at the liquid door, and was determined to see what was on the other side. It seemed that she could only find the answer to her question after she went in. The opportunity came soon enough when the whirlpool door opened again, with Guan Yining emerging from the inside. Gu Shizhou took the chance to sneak in at the very moment that the door was opened. Guan Yining felt a faint breeze that passed him. It smelled like grass and trees. There were many other concerns on the Admiral's mind at that moment, so he did not pay too much attention to it. He merely gave a few orders to the soldiers at the door, and then abruptly walked away. Meanwhile, Gu Shizhou had finally got to see the inside of the dome-shaped building with her own eyes. The layout was huge, and the entire place seemed to be made out of a unique soft metal. As she walked along the corridor, she could see a row of separated rooms. The color of the corridor was slightly blue as well. The entire experience made Gu Shizhou feel as though she was entering into an alien spaceship. All the materials were unfamiliar to her. She touched it with her fingers to try to get a feel of it, and realized it was very similar to the interior of the warplanes from before. The main obvious difference was the color scheme. There were also a lot of cameras in the corridor equipped with night vision mechanisms that could reveal any living things that walked by. Since Gu Shizhou was familiar with this device from the aircraft, she managed to adjust her body to the temperature to match that of the surrounding walls, so that she could stay under the radar. The further she ventured, the more she discovered. It seemed that not everything inside the dome was made of metal. After a few twists and turns, Gu Shizhou found a place that looked very similar to a garden. There were flowers and grass in the garden, and there were even small bridges connecting different pathways. Of course, the flowers and plants here were also unlike any other that she had seen before. Even the flowing water in the area was accompanied by a milky fragrance. Although she wanted to explore the place further, Gu Shizhou suddenly stood still when she saw a person in the garden planting something. A puppy that looked very much like a corgi was also running around the garden. Its limbs were short while its body was slightly fat. When it ran, it seemed like a ball, which looked very cute. Chapter 2634. Meet again too. The man with the corgi was shirtless but wore a pair of light gray military pants and boots. Once again, the material was foreign to Gu Shizhou. She observed the man who was squatting in the garden, but could only see his back. With just a glance, she could tell that he was a man with a good physical build. The man possessed what was referred to as the perfect inverted triangle. Broad shoulders with a healthy thin waist. The muscles on his back looked visibly bulged, and the vein line of his skin was well defined. His skin was also of healthy wheat color, and the muscles on his arms made him look extremely strong, probably due to the humid environment inside the dome. This person had a large amount of sweat on his back. This only accentuated his masculinity. Who was this person? Gu Shizhou had to find out, so she walked over, stood in front of the man. Since this person could not see her, there was no reason for her to feel shy about seeing him topless. Her heart raced as his face slowly became visible to her. This person looked mixed race. If anything, his features were a combination of the best of both the West and the East. His sword-like eyebrows were long, and his phoenix eyes were sharp and deep. To add to that, he had a tall nose along with slightly thin lips. This person's beauty was exceptional. He was perfect without a single flaw, which looked unreal. Although he was merely planting herbs, he looked as though he was a crouching cheetah. The man's aura was undoubtedly compelling. Gu Shijio could not help but wonder if this man was the leader of the pack. Her gaze then fell upon the pair of white gloves on his hands. There was a certain sense of nobility or status that seemed to be attached to those gloves. It appeared to be something that only high-ranking officials would wear. Guan Yining had worn a pair on his hands too. Gu Shijio slightly squinted her eyes to try to study the gloves in more detail. She tried to connect the dots with the information that she had retrieved from all these invaders. According to what she got, these invaders were attacking Tianju Hall, and Guan Yining just happened to have left the battlefield. He returned to the station because he had to repair his damaged ships. Otherwise, he would have returned to the battlefield. The description made it sound as though the battle was very intense at Tianju Hall. Yet, this person was leisurely planting herbs in the base. Therefore, he must be holding an extremely high post, which gave Gu Shijio a dilemma. She pinched her fingers together carefully to assess her next move. She was not sure if she should kill this person now or go to Lanyu before doing so. She was hesitant to make any rash moves as she knew that she had not fully grasped what was going on. She was distracted in her thoughts. The man suddenly looked up at her with a pair of eagle eyes. Gu Zijia's heart jumped. This person had 2 layers of pupils. The color of his inner pupils was dark purple, which looked like a deep whirlpool. When he looked at people, it seemed to be able to ingest the soul of the person. That certainly gave Gu Shijio a scare. Although she did not believe that he could see her with his bare eyes, Gu Shijio remained still. It was only a moment later that she realized that his sight was not on actually her, but the person behind her. Gu Shijio looked behind her, and shivered involuntarily. A man in a light blue robe stood behind her. He had long hair and had a handsome face. It was Lanyu. He looked at the man who squatted in his garden and asked, "Duan Mayan, is the herb done? She is not in good condition." Apparently, the handsome mixed-race man was Duan Mayan. He glanced at Lanyu momentarily, but then looked down and focused on the herb he was planting. His fingers lightly wiped on the surface of the herb, which was rather unusual. Fortunately, Gu Shijio was very focused on the man's every move. She noticed that there seemed to be a magnetic field on the man's finger, which made the herb blossom at a visible speed under his touch. When the flower opened to the size of a large cup, Duan Mayan plucked it and then stood up. "Let's go and see her." He then strode forward like a tall and sturdy military general. Although it might be an illusion, Gu Shijio felt as though the man could actually see her. Chapter 2635. Meet Again 3. It certainly seemed as though he saw her but then moved away. But did he really see her? Gu Shijio had this question in her heart. Fortunately, with her current abilities, she did not need to be too concerned. If he did pursue her, she was sure that she could fight or flee. Nonetheless, this person's abilities were remarkable, to say the least. He could grow a herb at will. Was he the assigned doctor for the soldiers here? And who was the person they wanted to save with this herb? These questions went around Gu Zijia's mind as she followed them to learn more. After several successive turns around the place, and a vault-like cabin appeared in front of them. Again, the hatch could only be opened from scanning their pupils. After Lanyu opened the door, he went in together with Duan Mayan. Understanding the mechanism of the door, Gu Shijio stood closely behind them, and quickly joined them once the door was open. When she saw the person who was lying on the bed, her heart stopped. A female dressed in a light gray military uniform with her hair was tied into a ponytail laid across the bed. Her chest was wounded and her face was ashen. She seemed to be seriously injured. Although this person looked different from before, Gu Shijio could recognize her at a glance. It was Lan Weihu. She was Gu Zijia's companion and best friend back in the day when she was in Tianju Hall. She was also Yin Chen's wife. When she married Yin Chen, Gu Shijio and Difui hosted their wedding. Curiously, Gu Shijio wondered why she was not holding the fort with Yin Chen in Tianju Hall. Why was she lying here? And what made her dress in a military uniform? Even though she was a member of the Blue Fox family, and also a national master, she truly loved Yin Chen, and the two of them were inseparable. Even if she learned that she was a descendant of the Blue Fox planet, she would not side with these aliens to take control of the Starry Crescent land, right? What was wrong with her, anyway? How did she get into such a critical condition? As the two men walked in, Duan Mayan went straight to the bed and hung the medicine in his hand over Lan Wei's wound. Upon squeezing the herb, some light brown liquid dripped down and fell on her injured chest. In just a brief moment, Lan Wei's eyelashes trembled, and she could open her eyes. Even though she could see her surroundings, she did not speak. In fact, it looked as though she had no emotions. Have you given up? Duan Mayan finally spoke. His voice was deep, magnetic, and pleasant to the ear. Lan Weihu closed her eyes again upon hearing what he had to say. In response, Duan Mayan smirked and exclaimed, "Stupid." Lan Yu interrupted them and asked, "Has she recovered?" "It won't be so fast." Although this medicine is effective to the people of the Blue Fox family, her injury is a spiritual injury. It will take at least another 2 doses of medicine to heal her. Gu Zijia's eyes fell on Lan Wei's face while the conversation went on. Although her facial features made her look like Lan Weihu, her temperament seemed to have changed. She used to be lively and cheerful. But now, she was somewhat depressed and indifferent to her surroundings. There was also a fiery red cinnabar stone in between her eyebrows. Was this her? Gu Shijio seemed to ask herself this question in her heart. Gu Shijio approached her body to take a closer look at her wound. Since her military dress was unbuttoned, Gu Shijio could tell that her injury was around the upper part of her chest. Gu Shijio was stunned by the sight of the wound as she recognized it straight away. This injury was caused by a fiery palm attack. To the best of Gu Zijia's knowledge, the only person who knew how to use the fiery palm attack in Starry Crescent Land was Yen Chen. But Yen Chen loved Lan Weihu so profoundly, so how could he hurt her so badly? Was it possible that the Lan Weihu in front of her was merely an imposter? Had she been cloned? After the two gentlemen chatted briefly, Duan Mayan left the room. Lan Yu had told him the concerns that he had, as well as the areas in which he wanted Duan Mayan to pay more attention. Gu Shijio naturally followed the man out since there was nothing she could do for Lan Weihu. When she left, she looked back and saw Lan Weihu lying motionless on the bed. However, there seemed to be tears rolling down the corners of her eyes. Chapter 2636. Siege. Lan Yu sat by her side and continued to watch her. He seemed to be lost in thought. After a moment, he reached out and held her little hand. Gu Shijio was stunned by what she saw. She was about to look again, but the door was closed behind her. She spent the next few moments looking to the ground as she followed Duan Mayan out of the chamber. After a while, she found herself back in the garden. It seems the man was back to plant more herbs. It was evident that he was growing the herbs necessary to help Lan Weihu improve her condition. For the entire journey here, Gu Shijio had gripped her fingers tightly together in order to prepare to launch a spell. She could now kill the person in front of her with her bare hands. But if she did so, she suspected that Lan Wei's injury would not be healed. Since the man was probably just a doctor, Gu Shijio did not feel the need to kill him. She felt that it was more important for her to head to Tianju Hall first to understand the extent of the situation. Therefore, she turned and left without launching any attacks. Behind her, Duan Mayan slowly raised his head and stared at Gu Zijia's back as she left. His eyes flashed slightly as if he had a sudden thought or inspiration. Once she left, he could not help but smirk. It was clear that he was aware that Gu Shijio was here. However, it was much sooner than he had expected. He stared at the herb in his hand, and the herb trembled slightly in his palm. The branches and leaves gently rubbed his palm, as if it was trying to please him. He bent his finger and played with the herb using a nail. He then whispered, "Good." Tianju Hall had been besieged for 4 months. No one could leave during the entire period. The people of the Starry Crescent Land had to stay within the barrier to avoid being chased by weird machines. These machines were highly resistant to any attacks that the people here had launched at them. There was nothing that they could do. No one in Starry Crescent Land had experienced this before. They did not even know how to deal with it, and could only watch as city after city collapsed under this terror. The emperors of the various countries sent dozens of letters to Mu Feng, and the other 3 messengers in search of a solution, or at least some hope. However, although Mu Feng and the team had made a drastic attempt to destroy a small warship, it did not help. There was no way they could protect the Starry Crescent land if it took them so much effort just to battle with a warplane. 2 places in the Starry Crescent land possessed strong wizardry barriers. They were the Biwu Palace, where the Lord stayed, as well as Tianju Hall. The Biwu Palace was a very special place. Only people with level 9 spiritual power and above could enter. If other people rushed in, they would perish. Therefore, it was not a suitable place to keep people safe. The only option available to them was Tianju Hall. Fortunately, the area was vast, there were many buildings inside, and there were mountains right behind Tianju Hall, which provided the people with an area to hunt for food. The wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall was said to be established by the Lord due to its unique geographical location. Since this was the work of the Lord, it was unsurprising that the aliens found it difficult to penetrate the barrier. In the end, many people decided to seek refuge in Tianju Hall. Most of the people who came already possessed a high level of spiritual power. Since these people predicted that they may be stuck here for a while, they brought a lot of gold and silver with them in case they needed to make purchases. Unfortunately, it did not really make a difference since there was a clear shortage of food. The accommodation was also very problematic. Once these people relocated themselves to Tianju Hall, their lives immediately turned difficult. Mu Feng and the 3 messengers were still fine as they had adopted a technique that allowed them to live without consuming any food. However, most people would not be able to develop that skill and still needed to eat. Tianju Hall did not have large stocks of food, so after 3 months, it seemed that the people had completely exhausted the food supply in the place. There were no beasts left in the mountains to hunt anymore. Chapter 2637. Siege 2. Everyone was worried because they were merely waiting for death at that point. There was no way out of the place, and hope slowly dissipated with time. Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers were overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. They could not see any hope as well for the people, but they could not say it out loud in fear that it would dampen their hopes. They still needed to encourage the people there to the best of their abilities. The only hope they could think of was the return of the Lord. The Lord will come back. She will come back and save us all. The Lord is extremely skillful and intelligent. She will definitely find a way to destroy these iron-armored monsters. Let's keep the faith and be patient. The Lord will not abandon us. She must be busy with something. But with her abilities, she can quickly get herself out of trouble and come back to save everyone. The Lord. The 4 messengers needed to keep the spirits high so that everyone could hold on a little longer. In the beginning, it was easy to keep them high-spirited, but as the days continued to pass, everyone grew more and more anxious. The Lord has been gone for 2 years. Perhaps, she has met with an accident. Maybe she has abandoned us. She might have been attracted by the wonderful life in Upper Bound, and is no longer coming back to Starry Crescent Land. After all, there is nothing here for her. Discouraging words started to circulate Tianju Hall. The people had lost their hope in the Lord, and even in Mu Feng and the other messengers. Fortunately, Mu Feng and others were good at managing people. Together with the leaders from the Tianju Hall, they were able to pacify the situation momentarily. Nonetheless, desperation and despair grew with starvation. The shadow of death was hanging on their heads, and everyone did not know where to go or what to do. It was only until one fine day that the 4 messengers suddenly remembered the existence of one person all at the same time. The former Lord, Celestial Master Zhua, who is also known as Di Fui. This memory came to them so suddenly, as if it was initially locked away in the deepest part of their mind, but was suddenly triggered by a mechanism, and floated all the way to the surface. It was an overwhelming feeling for them to process all the information at once, and their eyes turned red at the thought of it. It was unbelievable. The 4 of them quickly regrouped and shared their sudden revelations, realizing that it was fairly consistent with one another. In a state of frenzy, they quickly searched for Di Fui's friends and confidants to check if they had experienced anything similar. It seemed everything was real. Mu Feng and the 3 other messengers were filled with emotions, especially Mu Feng. He was the most intelligent among the messengers, and had multiple perspectives in his mind. He proposed a possibility. Did we suddenly remember the previous Lord because he was reborn? Is he coming back? This assumption had inspired many people and gave everyone new hope. However, as time went by, this new hope started to fade again. It had been nearly a month since they recovered this long-lost memory. By now, the people in Tianju Hall had resorted to eating the roots and bark of trees, but they still could see the shadow of the Lord, Huang Tuesday. He never came back. Perhaps it was only their memories that were restored. It was possible that his immortalization was a fact they could not change. If that were true, there was no way for him to save the people in Tianju Hall from the problematic situation. In the past, Gu Shijie had made a lot of directed audio spells for her subordinates and followers. Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers taught this skill to the other people in the Starry Crescent Land, and soon, everyone created them. Before the most recent time that Gu Shijie went to the upper bound, almost all the masters in Starry Crescent Land with spiritual power higher than level 5 had one directed audio spell in hand. It was easy for them to connect with each other using this device. Chapter 2638. Siege 3. When the aliens from the Blue Fox planet had invaded the Starry Crescent Land, everyone started to use the spell to communicate with each other. However, over the past month, the Blue Fox soldiers were able to construct a device that could intercept the contents of their direct audio. Therefore, using the spell to communicate was basically the equivalent of leaking information to the enemy. After Mu Feng and his people suffered a few losses, they knew that something had come up and ordered the destruction of all the spells, which consequently broke the connection between them and anyone outside of the Starry Crescent Land. So, even after Gu Shijie returned and created havoc for the enemy, Mu Feng and the people in Tianju Hall were unaware of her presence. However, it was safe to say that they were not completely ignorant. It became apparent to them that the number of battleships that surrounded Tianju Hall seemed to suddenly have reduced by more than half, as if they had received some instructions to support a different location. The moon was bright, and the stars were sparse. Everyone had been hungry for another whole day. They were generally very sleepy and exhausted due to the lack of food and nutrition. Needless to say, hope had come and gone for them. Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers stood on a high platform and were ready to encourage everyone again as they have been doing ritually. But this time, what Mu Feng was about to say was going to be slightly different. I think that the Lord is back this time. Did any of you notice that there were significantly fewer battleships outside Tianju Hall today? Everyone, please bear with us and persist for another day. I think that the Lord will be here by tomorrow. Yes, the Lord will not abandon us. She has likely been fighting outside Tianju Hall against these people. Mu Yan echoed. Ha ha. Mu Feng, can you stop wasting your breath? If the Lord were going to help us, she would have been here a long time ago. Why would she have us wait until we are desperate? Finally, someone dared to voice their true opinion. I agree. Perhaps the metal monsters left because they wanted to go home and rest. Either that or maybe they are going to study how to break through our wizardry barrier here. Haven't you noticed that our wizardry barrier is getting weaker by the day? Yes, at first, they couldn't even shake the wizardry barrier, but now they are getting more and more powerful. There is even a crack in the barrier. The crack has been repaired. Mu Feng was quick to point that out. Messenger Mu Feng, it's not that we don't trust you. This wizardry barrier is a blessing given to us by the 2 lords, so it is strong. But can you be sure that the repairs you did have made the barrier as strong as before? Mu Feng looked down at his feet upon hearing the last reply. Indeed, he could not be certain. Although the wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall was powerful, after 4 months of persistent attacks from those armored iron machines, there were signs of damage around the barrier of late, and perhaps it really would not be able to last too much longer. The outsiders only looted ordinary people, but they still let live since they were no threat to their operation. However, they were killing people with high spiritual power without any mercy. These people who hid in Tianju Hall were all of high spiritual power, and there was only one thing in store for their future: was the barrier is shattered. Since we are going to die sooner or later, why are we getting starving here and waiting to die? Why don't we just rush out and fight together? Yeah, I would rather die on the battlefield than starve to death. Let's fight with those bastards. It is better than dying in here without even contributing anything to the Starry Crescent land. Even if we only destroy 2 warplanes, we would have already done more than just sit here and wait to die. It was clear that the people here had accumulated a lot of negative energy from all their anxiety and hard times. They needed a form of release, and since some people in the group had suggested a fight, the rest seemed to have agreed and wanted to do the same. They had been cooped up for so long in here, and just wanted to leave. Mufeng calmly responded, "If we had a chance to win, do you think I wouldn't want to fight? Have you forgotten what had happened just 1 month ago?" Everyone remained silent after that reminder. A month ago, someone in Tianju Hall could no longer stand living this kind of trapped life, and wanted to go out and get some food. After a few repeated requests, Mufeng finally agreed to let Yanchen lead a few people with spiritual powers above level 8 to exit the barrier quietly. Chapter 2639, Siege 4. The 4 messengers did not expect the group of people who snuck out to be attacked as soon as they had passed the wizardry barrier. They were almost completely annihilated. Only Yanchen was able to return with Weihu. Back then, only a few of us had walked out of the wizardry barrier. If we all rushed out together, they might not be able to stop us. It will already be considered a success if one of us is able to escape from this calamity. Yeah, that is right. Let's not wait any longer. The remaining survivors were clearly rooting for this option. Being cooped up in this place for too long made them want to find any reason to escape. Mufeng was also growing desperate. They had been holding on for so long, but the reinforcements had not come. It was possible that no one was going to rescue them. If that were the case, perhaps rushing out altogether would provide them with a glimmer of hope. Maybe some of them would be able to survive. But this decision impacted the lives of thousands of people, so he had to make sure that it was really a feasible option for everyone. In fact, it was very likely that the 4 of them would survive if they were to rush out of Tianju Hall. However, Mufeng was certain that not many of the remaining survivors would make it far. These people were the hope for the Starry Crescent land. If the entire team was demolished, the Starry Crescent land would no longer have a future. On the other hand, if they did not try to escape, there was no grain of rice left in Tianju Hall to feed them. Even the grassroots had been dug up. They were bound to die of starvation if they continued to stay here. Every time Gu Shijio left the Starry Crescent land, she would request that the 4 messengers do their best to protect the people here. It was truly a dilemma for them because protecting them might also mean killing them. Whatever decision they made, people were going to die anyway. The revelation moved Mufeng to tears. He glanced at the crowd below him and looked at his 3 brothers again in search of a solution. Mu Lei and the other messengers have been feeling miserable as well. They also wanted to leave the place, regardless of the consequences. It became clear from the facial expressions of the other messengers that they had made up their minds to fight till the end with these people. If they were destined to die, they would at least make sure their lives meant something at the very end. Mufeng's attention then moved to Gu Kanmo, Yanchen, and his other close comrades. He was looking for their approval and support to move forward with the plan. Let's do it. Gu Kanmo and Yanchen responded together. They both looked desperate to do something for the team. Mufeng closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Okay, let's fight. Since everyone agreed with the idea of rushing out of Tianju Hall, the team started to pack their things and went to say their final words to their companions and relatives. After all, it was very likely that they would all perish tonight. But at least they would die with their loved ones. After some time, the 4 messengers, Gu Kanmo, and the rest of the leaders stood in the square. They were waiting for the others to say their goodbyes and gather here once they were ready. After that, they would open the wizardry barrier and rush out all together to distract the enemy. As time passed, the people slowly grouped at the square. The 3 emperors of the different kingdoms had also come to the square under the protection of their respective subordinates. In fact, the 3 of them were very skillful and could significantly influence the battle. They were no longer dressed in their robes, but instead, wore an attire that was suitable for a fight. As leaders, they should set a good example and be willing to sacrifice their lives for their people. Watching the respective emperors ready themselves for battle had hit everyone right in the heart. It was certainly a possible reality that none of them would live another day. The tragic atmosphere spread throughout the square like wildfire. Qianlingyu, the emperor of Haoyue Kingdom, drank some water from a bowl, and then slammed it on the ground. He announced, "Everyone, let us gather on Huangquan Road. Everyone needs to contribute to the fight. Even if we can only destroy one warplane, it would already be considered a success. Okay, let's assemble on Huangquan Road. Let's give them a fight." Everyone raised their bowls and finished their water. They raised the bowl in their hands, and were about to smash it on the ground as well, but were interrupted by a sudden breeze in the air. Someone asked, "What are you all doing?" The sound of this person's voice was cold but pleasant to hear. Even though Mu Feng still held the bowl in his hand at the time when this person spoke, the bowl slipped and fell to the ground. He quickly looked up to see who it was that had spoken. He saw a new face in the square. This person was dressed in white and had a powerful aura that was accompanied by a beautiful face. It was none other than Gu Shijio. Their lord was finally back. Pack, pack, pack. Countless bowls fell to the ground, and numerous pairs of eyes were focused on the lord. The people did not even dare to blink their eyes as they were worried that it could just be a dream. Perhaps, the lord would disappear if they were to get distracted for even a second. The entire square was silent as the people held their breaths. Chapter 2640. Between the real and the fake, some of the people here had never met Gu Shijio, but her aura made it clear to them that she was someone significant. Having been trapped for such a long time without food made them look pale and weak in comparison to her. To make matters worse, the people did not even bother to do their laundry or clean themselves, which only made them look worse. In some ways, they resembled beggars on the streets. Meanwhile, there was a faint circle of light that encapsulated Gu Shijio, giving her an aura of supremacy. "My lord." Mu Feng could no longer keep his composure. In fact, his legs grew weak as soon as he saw her. "My lord! My lord! My lord!" Those who knew her had immediately addressed her out loud. Most of them were already kneeling on the ground, and some even started crying. They were completely at a loss for words. Others among the crowd could not believe their eyes and kept rubbing them. Meanwhile, some even started to dance out of excitement. In a plethora of different responses, there were also a few people who actually passed out, as they could not suppress their overwhelming joy. In the end, a huge part of the crowd was already kneeling on the ground. Their lord was finally here to save them all. Tears started rolling in Gu Zijia's eyes. Her friends, and most importantly, her people, had been through so much pain. She looked at their pale faces and sighed. "I am sorry for coming back so late." She made amends by bringing them the most precious thing they needed now, food. Gu Shijio assumed that most of the people in Tianju Hall must be starving, so before she left the base of the Blue Fox family, she actually went to the grain store first. The store was heavily guarded, but these soldiers posed no threat to Gu Shijio at all. She defeated them all rather easily and took everything that she could find in the store. As a great deity, her storage space had also increased along with her spiritual power. She could easily store tons of food in her sleeves, so she decided to take everything they had, including some vegetables from another store. There were plenty of vegetables and meat, along with even a wide selection of dressings and spices. Conveniently, she cleared out the entire store and brought the supplies to Tianju Hall. Bustling waves of excitement spread across the hungered people as soon as they saw what she had for them in her bag. Soon, clouds of smoke rose from the open kitchen chimneys in the area, and pots and pans could be heard clanking about. Even though not every one of them knew how to cook, most of the people found themselves in the kitchen. Some were in charge of cleaning the rice while others were busy washing, picking, and frying the vegetables. Meanwhile, the rest had to cut and grill the meat that Gu Shijio brought with her. Since the kitchen knives were too blunt, some people actually offered to use their swords and weapons to cut the meat and vegetables. The lack of food had driven these people to the point of desperation earlier. After all, most of them were just mortals with flesh and bones. It had been too long since they last had a proper meal. Most of them had been surviving on grass and roots for quite some time. All they wanted was to get to taste some real food. All these people used to live very comfortable lives prior to the invasion of these iron machines. There was never a shortage of food or good clothing. Their only concern in the past was about how good their food tasted, and whether the texture and presentation were apparent. Nonetheless, their perception of food changed drastically now. A soft, hot bun would already make them very happy after months of starvation. Everyone was busy with the preparations as they wanted to eat as soon as they could. Gu Shijio spoke to the 4 messengers as soon as the opportunity arrived. Excited, their face turned slightly red, and they even stammered as they spoke. They briefed her about what had happened during the years of her absence, so Gu Shijio quickly got a general idea of the whole situation. Chapter 2641, Between the Real and the Fake. 2. Mu Feng was thrilled to see Gu Shijio, but he was reluctant to ask her anything about Di Fui. Since he did not come along with her to Tianju Hall, the messengers were unsure whether or not he had been resurrected. As this was obviously a very sensitive topic for Gu Shijio, they did not want to risk hurting her feelings just to satisfy their curiosity. She took a long time to get over Di Fui, so they did not think it was appropriate to mention anything about the past. In fact, they did not even ask how Gu Shijio had been for the past 2 years. While talking to them, Gu Shijio suddenly saw something that caught her attention. She was looking at Yan Chen was busy cooking in an open kitchen. He was not alone. There was a lady in a pink dress standing beside him. The woman's eyes were big and bright, which fully complemented her small, pinkish lips. When she smiled, her 2 dimples were very apparent. The woman looked like Lan Weihu. Was Lan Weihu really there, helping Yan Chen with the fire while he cooked? They were obviously having a good time together in the kitchen. Gu Shijio also noticed something else about Lan Weihu. While most of the people looked weak and starved, Lan Weihu looked just as healthy as ever, only slightly slimmer. She also kept looking at Gu Shijio but seemed to be afraid to approach her. Therefore, Gu Shijio decided to make the first move. Both Yan Chen and Lan Weihu were close friends of hers. After all, they had been through so many hardships and fought so many battles together back in school. To Gu Shijio, they were more than just friends. Although Gu Shijio had become the lord, she never ceased to visit them whenever she was in the lower bound. All 3 of them had forged a strong bond over the years, and maintained it quite well despite their different schedules. The lovely couple had been trying to have a baby, but could not, which was probably somehow related to Lan Weihu's bloodline in the Blue Fox family. She was eager to be a mother and to share a child together with the man she loved, but their attempts always ended in vain. In the past, Gu Shijio had tried to examine her health condition, and even offered her some supplements to help her become better prepared for pregnancy. Nonetheless, nothing seemed to be able to turn things around. Luckily, both Yan Chen and Lan Weihu had achieved a level 9 spiritual power. In return, their lifespan had been greatly increased as well. They could live for at least 1,000 years, so Yan Chen was not worried about having a baby for now. He often told Lan Weihu that there was plenty of time in the future, so there was no need to rush. They were genuinely a very loving and blissful couple. Sometimes, Gu Shijio wished that she could have a love story that was just the same as theirs. As soon as they saw Gu Shijio, they tried to contain their bursting excitement and greeted her formally. Nonetheless, she dismissed their overly courteous welcome and started talking with Lan Weihu, who seemed very happy to see her again. Smilingly, Gu Shijio listened to all her stories just like before. Lan Weihu was just as adorable and lively as Gu Shijio could remember. In fact, nothing about her seemed to have changed. Yan Chen also loved Lan Weihu very much. He pampered her and took care of her the very best that he could. Thus, there was no need for Lan Weihu to grow up and face the cruel world on her own. Upon seeing Lan Weihu, she recalled the injured woman that she saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. The woman was wearing a military suit, and her injuries seemed rather severe. She looked despaired and unhappy, which was a completely different personality trait from what Gu Shijio knew Lan Weihu to possess. She remembered recognizing that the latter's temperament was very different from Lan Weihu's. Therefore, Gu Shijio concluded that the woman before her eyes should be the real Lan Weihu. Nonetheless, she still wondered who was the woman in the military suit. Could she be Lan Weihu's relative? Was it only a coincidence that they shared the same look? Many questions had arisen, but Gu Shijio had to wait for the right time to ask them. All of a sudden, Lan Weihe's bloated belly had caught Gu Zijia's attention. "Weihu, are you pregnant?" Lan Weihu blushed crimson as she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, for 3 months now." "Congratulations. Both of you deserve the best." Gu Shijie was so happy for her. She knew how much Lan Weihu wanted a baby. While they spoke, Yanchen was sitting quietly at the side, seemingly preoccupied. He was never the talkative type, but today he was unusually quiet. Chapter 2642. Between the Real and the Fake 3. The only interaction Gu Shijie had with Yanchen was a formal greeting, and nothing more. When the opportunity presented itself during her conversation with Lan Weihu, Gu Shijie casually asked her, "Weihu, do you happen to have a sister who looks exactly like you?" Astonished, Lan Weihu gasped in reply, "Ah." Yanchen suddenly interrupted. "Shijie, may I have a word with you? Preferably alone." Gu Shijie looked at him and nodded. "Sure." Lan Weihu wanted to say something but was dismissed by Yanchen. He gave her a tap on the hand and said, "You should go and have some congee first while I speak with Shijie about something important. I will finish cooking the dish later. We will be right back." Obediently, Lan Weihu agreed. "All right." It was a full moon that night, but a thin layer of mist had hidden the moon. The land did not quite glitter under the fading moonlight. Gu Shijie and Yanchen were standing on the shore along the river, while everyone else was having their meal in the canteen. They were all alone in the open, undisturbed. "Shijie, why did you ask Weihu that question? Have you found anything?" Yanchen had the habit of addressing Gu Shijie as the Lord when they were in public places. But when they were alone, he still called her by her name, like a friend. Certainly, it was also what Gu Shijie preferred. After all, she hoped to maintain a close relationship with those that she called friends. Gu Shijie fixed her eyes on Yanchen as she studied his appearance. He looked well-built and tall, probably around 20 years old. Aging had not done any harm to his handsome face at all. Casually, Gu Shijie crossed her arms and slowly said, "I have come across a woman who looks exactly like Weihu. The person seems like a clone of her. She looked injured, so I took the chance to examine her injuries and thought that you might be responsible for the damage. Have you met her?" Yanchen pinched his lips into a tight line. "She is different from Weihu. Weihu does not have a burgundy birthmark on her forehead. Also, she is not a cruel and violent woman. A couple of days ago, the invaders stopped attacking all of a sudden, and many of the troops had left. Eagerly, everyone was delighted to go outside and celebrate, but we knew just how cunning these enemies actually were. Mu Feng was concerned that this might be a trap, so he sent me outside with them to be safe. As soon as I left Tianju Hall, I bumped into the clone and was shocked. At first, I thought that Weihu was snuck out again as she used to in the past, but the more I observed, the more doubtful I grew. Although she looked just like Weihu, her aura was completely different. She seemed a little dark." "A dark aura?" Gu Shijie added. "Why did you think so?" "When I saw her, she was trying to kill a rabbit. Then she sank her teeth into the rabbit's neck and started drinking its blood." Gu Shijie remained quiet as she listened to his explanation. She heard me and turned around to look at me, with bloodstains on her lips. She ran towards me, but I immediately pushed her away. The next thing I knew, she started saying that she was Weihu and that she was caught when she snuck out of Tianju Hall with me about a month ago. She told me that the past month had been a torment for her, and that she was finally able to escape from her captivity. She wanted me to take her home." Gu Shijie seemed confused. "What happened 1 month ago?" "About a month ago, the food supply in Tianju Hall was running very low. Along with 20 other skilled men, I volunteered to find food outside the wizardry barrier. Little Fox was worried for me, so she sneaked out with us. We fell into a trap, and our men kept getting slaughtered. It took me long enough to fight a way out alive, and I only found Little Fox while I was on my way back. I took her hand without any second thought, and she has been with me ever since. How could she possibly be captured? Moreover, Little Fox is a gentle person with a kind heart. Why would she torture an innocent rabbit?" Chapter 2643. Between the Real and the Fake 4. The woman lied to me. Nothing that she said ever made any sense. I asked her questions about things that only Little Fox and I knew, but she could not answer anything. Eventually, she was frustrated and started attacking me. At first, I did not want to hurt her because of the close resemblance between her and Weihu. But soon, help came to assist her. I was forced to defeat her and make my escape. Gu Shijiu asked Yanchen a few more questions, and did not find anything to be suspicious about. She agreed that the injured woman that she saw was indeed different from Lan Weihu. Perhaps, the woman was only a puppet created by the people from the Blue Fox planet. It was highly likely, as their technology was clearly more advanced than what they had in the Starry Crescent land. Nonetheless, there was still a chance that the lady was a distant relative of Lan Weihu, since she was still part of the Blue Fox family. Although this matter was important, Gu Shijiu had to leave as she had many other things to attend to for now. Meanwhile, Yanchen stood where he was and looked at his own hands blankly. The woman was clearly not Lan Weihu, but his heart ached for her as soon as he hit her. He had an involuntary urge to carry her in his hands the moment she collapsed. The feeling stuck with him until now. He stood gazing at the moon, contemplating the recent events. Suddenly he noticed something. Who is that? He turned around abruptly to check. Yanchen, it is me. Lan Weihu appeared from behind a tree and ran towards him. Don't run so fast. You are pregnant now, so you have to be more careful. Yanchen quickly grabbed her hand. Lan Weihu was smiling at him very sweetly. I know. I will be careful. This baby did not come easy. It belongs to the Yin family. Little Fox, you do know that I don't care about my family name, right? I only care about the baby because it is ours. I know. I know. Lan Weihu reassured while grasping his arm tightly in hers. Her smile was exceptionally bright, even under the pale moonlight. Her cheeks blushed crimson with delight at his care for her. Yanchen found her so beautiful that even the brightest stars of the night were incomparable to the starlight in her eyes. Her full, pouty lips were as red as two rose petals. With her eyes closed, she moved her lips closer toward him as an invitation for him to come forward. Yanchen would usually go for the kiss, but now he did not feel like it. Lan Weihu waited for a moment, but she soon realized that nothing touched her lips. Yanchen. She opened her eyes and pleaded. Yanchen only caressed her forehead gently and said, "All right, let's go back and eat something." He wanted to guide her back, but she stopped to ask him a question. Yanchen, will you come to my room tonight? Yanchen hesitated to reply. Ever since Lan Weihu was pregnant, he decided that they should sleep in separate rooms for the sake of their baby's well-being. He had been busy planning strategies to find a way out of Tianju Hall and hopefully take down the aliens, so sex was the last thing on his mind. Lan Weihu was obviously inviting him for sex tonight. He thought about it for a moment and decided to turn her down. Silly, you have a baby now. We shall not. We can still do it. Lan Weihu stared at him with her watery eyes and continued. The first 3 months of the pregnancy are dangerous, but it's safe after the first trimester. As long as we do it carefully, the baby will be fine. Yanchen was a little surprised. Who told you that? He had never heard of the theory before. Lan Weihu paused for a little before she smilingly replied. Shijiu told me so. Would you doubt her? Gu Shijiu was known to be highly skilled in medicine, so anything that she said would usually be right. Yanchen was a little caught off guard by Lan Weihu's desperate request. Tears were already rolling in her eyes because he seemed to have rejected her. Yanchen, don't you miss me at all? She then tiptoed to get closer to him. Chapter 2644. Working out a scheme, Lan Weihu proceeded to breathe warm air into his ear seductively. It was a pleasurable and yet tickling sensation for the Yanchen. Little Fox was generally a shy person, so she would not normally take the first step and invite Yanchen over for the night. Sometimes she did not even feel comfortable about their intimacy. If she found that Yanchen had been too aggressive, she would completely shut him out for the following days. In her personal opinion, a successful relationship should be able to withstand the test of time. A casual stroll under the moonlight would already be a romantic gesture to her. However, she was not very keen on sexual intimacy. Deep down, She did not feel comfortable seeing a man and a woman caressing one another while naked. The physical part of her relationship kind of ruined her ideal picture of a perfect couple. Yanchen loved her dearly. He knew that she was not very comfortable with physical contact, so he had been cautious with his needs throughout the years of their marriage. Only in times of desperation would he call for desperate measures and get her into the mood. Yanchen was usually in control of himself, but that did not stop him from feeling the sexual excitement that a young man should have, especially when he was alone with his beloved wife. As soon as Little Fox knew that she was pregnant, it became her sole, legitimate reason to turn down all of his invitations. She even suggested that they should be sleeping in different rooms to avoid him from getting too sexually aroused. The child did not come easy, and Yanchen cared about the baby just as much as she did, so he agreed to her terms. However, Tianju Hall was now crowded with many refugees, so there were not enough rooms for them to sleep separately. If they insisted on splitting, they needed to share a room with other people. Therefore, Yanchen moved out and joined his buddies in the same room. He was worried that Little Fox might get bored, so he asked a friendly junior to share the room with her. Besides, there were too many things that Yanchen needed to attend to in Tianju Hall. He had been quite occupied trying to figure out a way for them to defeat the aliens, so there was hardly any time that he could spend with Little Fox. They only met once a day. Yanchen was a young man full of vigor. Therefore, the sight of his wife was enough to arouse him. When they were alone, he would not hesitate to hug and kiss her to show his affection. There was once when he got too close to her, which made Little Fox aware of his erection. She was appalled by it and immediately pushed him away. Yanchen was very embarrassed by the incident and left abruptly. For 3 days he dared not visit her. However, he was then sent away for a mission, which was when Little Fox sneakily followed him to make sure that he was safe. Ever since their return, Little Fox seemed to finally understand her husband's needs and started taking more initiative to please him. However, Yanchen's injuries had prevented him from sharing any forms of intimacy. Also, his juniors and brothers had all died during the mission, so he had been feeling quite down lately about the loss of his comrades. Therefore, he chose to ignore all of Little Fox's sexual hints. In fact, he was not quite interested in any intimate engagements with her at the moment. Little Fox was obviously inviting him to bed right now, but he was not excited about it at all. He caressed her hair gently and said, "Go and have some food and then have a good rest. I need to see Principal Gu and discuss some matters with him." He then turned and left swiftly. Bewildered, Lan Weihu stood alone and watched as his figure disappeared in the dark. After a while, she put her hand on her tummy and gently caressed the baby. With a sigh, she slowly left. It was their first proper meal in 3 months. Everyone indulged in the feast. Gu Shizhou had kept the meat from them, so the first meal was only vegetables and congee. She told them that it would not be good for their digestive systems since they had been starving for so long. Since they were so hungry, even the vegetables alone tasted amazing. The amount of food that Gu Shizhou brought was enough to feed everyone fairly well. Chapter 2645. Working out a scheme, 2. Even though they were really eager to fill their stomachs, they needed to consume their food slowly. Nonetheless, everyone was so happy just to be able to eat, so they all agreed to her suggestions and terms. The amount of food that Gu Shizhou had brought with her was enough to feed everyone for at least a month. The Lord's return had also shown a glimpse of hope on their tactics. Therefore, the strategists in the team started to work out their plans again. "My lord, most of them have no spiritual power. It is only their kung fu that is good. The most impressive things about our opponents are their weapons and protective clothing. Nothing we have seems to be able to destroy their protective clothing. Also, their weapons are out of this world." "That is right. Some of their weapons can even shoot fire and set an entire street in flames. Some release laser beams too, turning any target into ashes. There is no way we can escape from it. Also, some of the weapons appear to vacuum the whole area when activated and suffocate every living being to death within the perimeters. Their ships can release certain sound waves that are not particularly irritating to the ears, but deadly enough to make the victims bleed to death from all the 7 orifices of their heads. Once they are in the ships, there is nothing we can do to take them down. The discussion continued. These people had been fighting against the intruders from the Blue Fox planet, so they knew exactly who they were dealing with. All of them quickly shared what they knew about their enemies to help inform their lord about the enemy. Gu Shizhou listened attentively. She knew how powerful the weapons were firsthand. Not many among the people of the Starry Crescent land had the strength to withstand such weapons of destruction. The loss of lives was inevitable. You said that most of them do not possess spiritual power. Does that mean that some of them do? Mu Feng was first to respond to the question. Yes, some of them do possess spiritual power, somewhere between levels 6 to 7. I met one of them before and fought so hard to destroy his weapon, but he managed to escape in the end by channeling his spiritual power as a shield. However, his spiritual power was not like ours. It was something different. He then glanced at Lan Weihu and decided to stop talking. The enemy was too strong for the people of the Starry Crescent land to resist. There was no way they could fight back, so they ended up having to flee. Furthermore, none of their spies had ever returned from their mission. Therefore, no one knew exactly where the enemy was from. Troubled, Gu Shizhou took a quick look at Lan Weihu and casually asked, "Little Fox, what is your opinion of these people?" Lan Weihu's kung fu was outstanding, but she was not good at voicing her opinions during major discussions. She was sitting in the corner with Yan Chun when she was called out publicly by Gu Shizhou. Surprised, she started stammering, I do not know them very well. Didn't you sneak out into the battlefield last month? Did any of them pursue you? Gu Shizhou asked gently. Lan Weihu did not know how to answer her question, so she turned and looked to Yan Chun for a solution. 2 men were trying to catch her. I assumed they wanted her alive, as they did not launch any fatal attacks. Yan Chun answered on her behalf. Gu Shizhou asked again, "Little Fox, what did the 2 men tell you?" Lan Weihu shook her head but eventually said, They said something indecent, but nothing more. Gu Shizhou then looked at Yan Chun for confirmation. I made it in time to free her from the 2 men. They left as soon as I approached. Chapter 2646. Working out a scheme 3. Since they were obviously without a ship, did you go after them? Yan Chun shook his head. Little Fox was hurt and clearly shocked by the incident. The 2 men possessed spiritual power, and I suspected that their weapons might be too powerful for me to handle, so I did not chase them. Many follow-up questions arose as Gu Shizhou did not quite understand. Lan Weihu was the daughter of the high priest from the Blue Fox family. She had been quite close with them for the past few years, enough to earn her respect from the community. As far as Gu Shizhou was concerned, the people of the Blue Fox planet did not possess any spiritual power. As for the Blue Fox family that had been taking refuge in the Starry Crescent land for thousands of years, their spiritual power was the result of their meditation and practice over time. The men who went after Lan Weihu should be members of the Blue Fox family as well, so they should know about Lan Weihu. She could understand why they wanted to keep Lan Weihu alive, but she did not understand why they harassed her. Moreover, Lan Weihu once told her that she had a certain connection to the people of her own family. A touch was enough for her to tell her people apart. These 2 men had injured and even harassed her. There was no reason that Lan Weihu could not recognize them. So why was she refusing to tell them the truth? Was she worried that things might become complicated for her if she spilled the secret of her Blue Fox family? Although the reason was legitimate, Lan Weihu was not the kind of person who would hide the truth away from Gu Shizhou. Little Fox, have you tried contacting your people? Gu Shizhou suddenly asked again. After a pause, Lan Weihu slowly said, No, I have not been in touch for more than a year. I have no idea how they are doing right now. Yan Chun agreed with her. We have not visited the base of the Blue Fox family for over a year now. We wanted to go, but had to postpone our plans due to the invasion. Gu Shizhou looked around her and asked, Is there anyone here from the Blue Fox family? I am the only one, Lan Weihu answered grimly. Gu Camo sighed. The Blue Fox family has always been an independent community that hardly interacts with the outside world. I have not seen Lan Yu in a long while. There is no way for us to communicate with them, as well. Furthermore, the base of the Blue Fox family is guarded with its own wizardry barrier. I believe that Lan Yu is capable enough to keep the invaders out. Perhaps they have not fallen into the hands of our enemy yet. No, the Blue Fox family has fallen, Gu Shijiu reassured firmly. As she uttered those words, she was looking carefully at Lan Weihu and trying to observe her reaction. The crowd gasped in astonishment by the revelation, and Lan Weihu's face turned pale. Gu Shijiu looked at her sternly, making her feel rather uncomfortable. She looked at Gu Shijiu with her big, watery eyes and said in a trembling voice, "My lord, have you visited them? Has their defense been breached? The base of our enemy is right where the Blue Fox family is located." The news was startling to all who were present. They gasped in astonishment. Gu Shijiu continued to observe Lan Weihu. She was holding Yan Chen's finger very tightly, seemingly worried. "Oh, my dear people." Gu Shijiu shook her head but said nothing more. Lan Weihu was even more worried by now. Her eyes were already soaked with tears. "Little Fox, if you are really worried about them, I can take you to the base tomorrow," Gu Shijiu offered. "I am going with her," Yan Chen volunteered. He was worried for her safety, but he also knew that there was no way he could stop her from visiting her people in such times of distress. Lan Weihu did not answer immediately. She bit her lips nervously and said, "The people from the outside are so powerful. Also, the base of the Blue Fox family is so far away from here. My lord, you need to stay here and look after these people. How can I selfishly take you away and put you in danger again?" Chapter 2647. Working out a scheme for, "Don't worry. I can handle them with ease. It will not be dangerous for us. I am pregnant with a baby." Lan Weihu slowly caressed her bloated stomach as she spoke, obviously reluctant to take the risk. Gu Shijiu sighed. "I sneaked into the base of the Blue Fox family through their ship, so I was not able to see anything from the brief visit. The place is the military base of our enemy, so I have to visit them again. Knowing their strength is the key to our success. However, I cannot seem to break through the wizardry barrier. Little Fox, as the high priest of Blue Fox family, you should know how to get us through, right?" I do," Lan Weihu answered hesitantly. She looked at Yan Chen as if asking for help. "Don't worry. The Lord will protect you. I will go with you too. You have always wanted to visit your people, haven't you? If you are worried about them, we might as well take this opportunity to see how they are doing," Yan Chen reassured, while gently caressing her hand. Yan Chen could not help but look at Lan Weihu with a sense of doubt. Over the past month, she had never stopped telling him how worried she was about her people. She sobbed in front of him, and even asked him to take her to see them. However, when Gu Shijiu finally offered to take her there, Lan Weihu unexpectedly refused, despite the guarantees on her safety. With all the looks that she was receiving, Lan Weihu knew she had to take the offer. She took a deep breath and finally said, "All right. We shall go tomorrow." All of a sudden, their discussion was interrupted by a spy. "My lord, the strange ships have suddenly left us. They are no longer even attacking us." Gu Shijiu nodded approvingly. Gu Kanmo seemed relieved at the news, but not entirely at ease. "My lord, they did the same a month ago. They withdrew their troops all of a sudden, but it was all a part of their plan to lure us out. We lost dozens of men that day. I am afraid that they are using the same tactic again. Don't worry. They must have sensed the danger, and thought that I might destroy another dozen of their remaining ships. They need a safer place to plan their comeback." Gu Kanmo looked at her in utter disbelief. "My lord, you destroyed a dozen of their ships?" Gu Shijiu acknowledged his question with a nod, and told them about her experience with the troops. The people were becoming more and more excited. They finally knew that the ships were not indestructible, after all. The sense of victory started to emerge among them. The more they spoke, the darker the sky grew. Gu Shijiu offered to strengthen the wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall, as she could repair the broken barrier much better than Mu Feng did. Finally, the wizardry barrier was restored to its original force. It had been a long day for Gu Shijiu, so she decided to go back and have a rest after re-establishing the barrier. Gu Kanmo offered her the best guest room to stay the night, but she refused. Instead, She chose to return to the place where Di Fui had once stayed. Mu Feng and his fellow comrades built the place, but when everything about Di Fui was wiped away, they could not remember whom they built it for. As soon as their memories were restored, the haunting melancholia took over. Anyway, Gu Shizhou did not want any company tonight, and entered the house alone. Mu Feng and his men stayed behind. They felt sad for Gu Shizhou, as she must be overwhelmed with acute nostalgia about her past with the previous lord, Huang Tuesday. It seemed to them that the deceased lord would never return. They made a promise to one another that they would not mention a word about Huang Tuesday. That was the least that they could do to ease her pain. They would only keep Huang Tu in their hearts so long as they served Gu Shizhou. Gu Shizhou was indeed reminiscing the past, but was not entirely saddened. She decided to sleep in the room where Di Fui used to stay, and indulged in the enjoyable recollection of their past events. Fui, I wish you were here. You must be very worried about us in the Shura world, but that is how it is now. You once said that we would need at least a year of preparation to leave the place. Perhaps when we meet again, our baby will already be here. How I wish you were here by my side to welcome our baby together. Chapter 2648. Had she misread the sign? Gu Shizhou had accomplished many things that day. Even though she was drained by all that had happened, she could not bring herself to fall asleep. She laid on the bed where Di Fui used to sleep. Centuries had passed since the last time he laid there, so his scent was no longer traceable. However, all the furniture and arrangements of the room still reminded her of the past. The covers clung to her soft skin comfortably, but she found herself rolling around in bed. Since the cover once belonged to Di Fui, it was not surprising that it was of the highest quality. Everything that he used and owned would always be the best quality. Even after all these years, the cover still felt very soft and warm, reminding her of a wonderful summer day. Fui, do you miss me? You must be very anxious now. Perhaps it is time for you to feel how difficult it is to look for someone. In the dark, a smile seemed to appear on her face. To her people, she was the mighty lord. However, she behaved like a child when she was with Di Fui. Even the thought of him made her feel weak. Worrying about Di Fui was not something she would do this time around. He had finally recalled his past, and even retained his powerful aura and kung fu. Nothing could possibly hurt him. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before they would be reunited. Excited about his return, Gu Shizhou was eager to tell everyone that Di Fui had been resurrected. But she was concerned that it might be a heavenly secret. If she were to reveal another heavenly secret, she could not be sure of the consequences that awaited her this time. What if Di Fui's past was erased again? She could not afford to lose the man another time. Perhaps, all that she needed to do was to be patient. She was certain that Di Fui would eventually show up. His appearance would definitely come as a shock to everyone, and she could not wait to see them gasp in disbelief. In particular, she looked forward to seeing the messenger's reactions. It would be very entertaining. Meanwhile, Gu Shizhou was curious if they had already known about Di Fui's resurrection. Since Di Fui and Gu Shizhou could recall the past, she assumed that everyone else would have their memories of Huang Tu restored. So, why hadn't they spoken a word of him? This oddity led Gu Shizhou to believe that the people of the Starry Crescent Land did not experience the revelations that she had expected. They might have known nothing about it. In which case, it was of the utmost importance that Gu Shizhou keeps his return a secret. Besides, it would not change anything for the time being. Secretly, Gu Shizhou started imagining the day that they would finally meet again. She predicted that his next destination would be the Upper Bound. However, the channel that connected the Upper Bound and the Starry Crescent Land had mysteriously disappeared, so it would be tricky for him to come to her. Di Fui had told her that he once spent 6 months trying to look for a connection that could take him from the upper to the lower bound, but could not seem to find one. What if he still could not find the way, this time? The more she thought of it, the more insecure she became. Therefore, she eventually decided to get up and leave the bed. By the window, she stood and looked intently at the brilliant moon that lit up the night sky. The moon was a slender crescent, and part of it was obscured by the clouds, thus adding a slight hint of mystery. People often claimed that reunions would happen whenever there was a full moon. She could not help but wonder when she would see one. With a sigh, she started caressing her tummy. Little one, you will probably be a young lady by the time you meet your father. Also, little Dee-How will probably be all grown up by then. The near future sounded kind of depressing for her, so she tried to shake the thoughts away. She went to bed again and put her hands securely on her tummy, which was still flat, not giving away any sign of her pregnancy, unlike little fox's. She sat up abruptly as soon as she thought of Lan Weihu. The woman that she saw in the base camp of the Blue Fox family was clearly not pregnant. It suddenly occurred to her that the pregnancy could be the way to distinguish between the two of them. Chapter 2649. Had she misread the sign? 2. Initially, Gu Shijiu suspected that the Lan Weihu in Tianju Hall was a clone or an impostor. Likewise, she believed that the injured woman in the Blue Fox family's base was the genuine Lan Weihu. However, she did not have enough evidence to make a sound conclusion. The sudden realization that she had found a way to distinguish the two startled her. She decided to teleport to Yanchen right away, so that she could discuss the matter with him. Yanchen was currently residing with one of the disciples of Tianju Hall. Just when Gu Shijiu was about to arrive, a woman could be seen approaching Yanchen urgently. Brother Yan, little fox is not feeling very well. You should go and check on her. Panicked, Yanchen quickly went to see his wife. Meanwhile, Gu Shijiu quietly followed him without revealing her presence. Yanchen broke into the room abruptly and rushed to his wife's side. As for Gu Shijiu, she used the invisibility spell and went in unnoticed. Lan Weihu was lying on the bed, looking pale and weak. Her lips were pouted as a reaction to the discomfort that she seemed to be facing. However, her eyes lit up as soon as she saw Yanchen. In fact, she sat right up and opened her arms widely to invite him. Yanchen. Yanchen embraced her and quickly checked on her as well. What is it? Why did your stomach ache all of a sudden? I don't know. Maybe because I have accidentally sprained my back. Lan Weihu pressed her head on his chest and seemed to really be in pain. Yanchen became nervous by her actions. How did you sprain your back? When did it happen? How do you feel right now? He asked while trying to examine her pulse. Unfortunately, the man was not a medical expert. He could help with some simple external injuries, but he did not know much about the complications that came with pregnancy. Lan Weihu stayed still and patiently waited for him to assess her situation. When she noticed that he was done reading her pulse, she continued. It happened after you left me just now. I tried to catch up with you, but tripped over a stone and stumbled. I scraped my knees during the incident. As soon as she brought up the injury, she rolled up her pants to reveal her knees to him. Yanchen's heart ached. He felt bad for leaving her alone just now. Silly, why didn't you say anything earlier? He quickly treated the wounds on her knees. Little Fox was a tall woman who possessed long and slender legs. Her skin was as white and fair as the snow while her toes were small and exquisite, which perfectly complemented her well-arched feet. Although a woman's feet were not as private as her breast, no one would simply reveal her legs in public for everyone to see. Only husbands were allowed to see their wives' legs. Yanchen especially liked it when Little Fox revealed her legs in front of him. The sight of her slender legs usually got him excited. This time, she had put one of her legs on his lap. Her flawless skin looked even fairer under the light in the bedroom, which clearly caught the attention of the man in the room. Although Yanchen noticed what Little Fox was up to, surprisingly, he did not feel the excitement that he used to get when she seduced him in the past. He only kept his attention on her injured knees and applied some medicine to treat the wounds. Once he was done, Yanchen proceeded to massage her legs to try to soothe the soreness. Yanchen, my stomach is still hurting. The man had clearly been distracted by her legs and had forgotten about treating the main injury. The symptoms should not be taken lightly as Lan Weihu could lose the baby because of the fall. Therefore, he wanted to get her adequately checked as soon as possible. Unfortunately, he was not a doctor and was not able to do so himself. I will ask Shijiu to come and have a look. Yanchen rose to his feet as he spoke, but was halted by Lan Weihu. Yanchen, there is no need for that. It has been a really long day for Shijio. She must be very tired now. Let her rest. We should not trouble her with our own inconveniences. Lan Weihu sounded very kind and considerate. This is not a small matter. What if the baby is affected? Should I ask Dr. Meng to come and have a look at you? I heard she is good. Chapter 2650. The identification. Everyone must be tired. We should not trouble anyone at this hour. Don't worry. There is only minor discomfort in my stomach. The baby should be fine. I will feel better if you rub my belly. Lan Weihu then put his hand on her stomach and said, "Do it very gently." Yanchen quietly did as she requested. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio, who had been invisible in the corner, saw everything that happened. Her medical skills and knowledge were excellent. With one look, she could already tell that Lan Weihu's baby was fine. In fact, she had made up the entire situation. Gu Shijio thought that Lan Weihu was only using it as an excuse to avoid going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow. She guessed that Yan Chun would be persuaded to turn down her offer, all for the sake of their baby. Nonetheless, to Gu Zijia's surprise, the sole purpose of the entire act was to seduce Yan Chun. Lan Weihu was already on the bed, with her clothes unbuttoned, thus revealing the pink belly band that was loosely covering her bloated tummy. Her skin was as fine as polished jade, which was clearly inviting. Yan Chun froze momentarily, and his hand stopped rubbing her tummy when he realized what she was up to. Gu Shijio stood in a daze as well, unsure if she should stay or leave. It was their very private moment, so it would not be so appropriate for her to stay in their bedroom. However, she was concerned about Yan Chun. If Little Fox turned out to be an imposter, Yan Chun would definitely feel very guilty for having sex with another woman. Both of them had been sleeping in separate bedrooms for almost 3 months now. Had they ever spent a night together during that period? Yan Chun, what is the matter? Yan Chun shook his head. Nothing. He then continued to rub her belly without doing anything more. Lan Weihu had always been very healthy. She hardly fell ill and did not even have period cramps bothered her. The only stomach pain that she had ever encountered was the aftermath of eating too much ice. At the time, Yan Chun had to rub her belly to make her feel better, but they ended up doing more than just that. Since then, Little Fox was a little scared of asking him for help. This time, she was, surprisingly, the one who asked for the belly rub first. She grasped him by the wrist as she slowly traced his hand down her body. Yan Chun finally recovered from his preoccupation as soon as he noticed some hair on his fingertips. Abruptly, he pulled his hand back inside. Little Fox, there is no need for that. Little Fox's face blushed crimson. Yan Chun looked away and stepped back. Little Fox, there is no need for you to please me. Don't worry. No matter how much you dislike the intimate part of our relationship, I still love you just the same. All right, you should rest. I will see you in the morning. He then stormed out of the room. Lan Weihu did not know what to say. She watched helplessly as Yan Chun left the room. What an idiot! She let out her frustration in a murmur. Slowly, she tidied up her clothes and fell asleep on the bed. Gu Shijio was still watching her. She could have easily extracted Lan Weihu's soul out of her body to identify who she really was. However, the extraction would definitely harm the baby. Besides, there were other ways to prove her identity, so there was no rush. Therefore, Gu Shijio left the room as well. She went to look Yan Chun by the hillside. He looked like he was patrolling since he was striding up and down the place, but in fact, he was all caught up in a daze. Gu Shijio approached him and called him out. Yan Chun. Yan Chun was surprised to see her. Why haven't you gone to bed? Gu Shijio blatantly replied. I am thinking about Little Fox. What about her? Yan Chun, when did you find out about the pregnancy? Chapter 2651. Do you still feel the same about her? About 2 months ago, Dr. Meng found out about it. Gu Shijio seemed troubled by the revelation. Dr. Meng was a great physician, who was also a loyal member of Tianju Hall. Her examinations should be accurate. Therefore, Little Fox must be genuinely pregnant. Shijio, is there something wrong? Chen was worried by Gu Zijia's troubled face. After a pause, Gu Shijio told him everything that she saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. She told him about Lan Yu and Duan Mayan. Pale-faced, Chen was stricken with grief. He never knew that the Blue Fox family once belonged to inhabitants of another planet. Never had he thought that Little Fox's family were the invaders who burned, killed, and pillaged his home. If the people of Tianju Hall knew about it, they would definitely take their anger out on Little Fox. Shijio, why must Little Fox come with us tomorrow? If she finds out about the truth of her family, she will be so deeply saddened. She is pregnant, so I should try to keep her away from any extreme swings in her emotions. Chen, have you noticed anything abnormal about Little Fox in the past month? Gu Shijio finally broke her silence. Chen hesitated a little. Nothing. She has been the same. The only change was her attitude in bed, but that probably meant that she had become more mature. Moreover, her playful sexual attraction was nothing but a little spice in their relationship, which was something that Chen was reluctant to share. How about your feelings? Do you still feel the same about her? Chen could not answer immediately. Should be, he added a bit later on. Chen, I want the truth. Don't try to fool me. I need to know how you feel about her. Chen remained silent for a while. He did not know how to start, but he did notice how turned off he was whenever he was alone with Little Fox. He used to be so overwhelmed with a strong desire to touch and caress her, but things were different now. The only thing that he felt for her was responsibility. The overwhelming desire was no longer present. Shijio, what are you trying to say? Please tell me. He finally gave in. Gu Shijio hesitated a little, but decided that he needed to know. Lan Yu was not the only one that I saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. I also saw another woman who looked exactly like Little Fox. She was fatally injured, almost on the verge of dying. She was dying? Chen exclaimed. Yes, her life was supported by a special herb. The family's doctor asked if she regretted anything, but she did not answer. Before I left, I saw her crying. No one knew that I was there, so there was no need for them to put on a show just to entertain me. Chen clenched his fists in disbelief. He caught the hint and asked Gu Shijio in return. Do you think that the woman is the real Little Fox? Is the one I have been seeing every day only an impostor? Upon uttering those words, Chen quickly dismissed the thought. Gu Shijio continued. Although the woman looked exactly like Little Fox, her temperament was completely different. More importantly, the woman that I saw was not pregnant. Or at least, she did not look like it when I saw her a few days ago. Realizing that she had dropped a bomb on Chen, Gu Shijio looked at him intently and said, Chen, you are her husband, so you are the one who knows her best. Follow your heart. She took another look at the moon, and was reminded of a past incident. By the way, do you remember that my soul was once placed in another body? I do. Your body was taken over by someone else, while your soul was forcibly placed in a cloned body by Mo Zhao. He suddenly stopped talking as the sudden realization had hit him hard. Chapter 2652. I am not interested in the throne. Chen recalled the woman that he had injured the other day. Her eyes had sparkled with joy as soon as they met, and she did not hesitate to approach him. She seemed almost like a lost child who was seeking refuge from the first person she saw that she trusted. Lan Wei, who definitely trusted and loved Chen wholly. Even if she were mad at him, that trust and love would not change. However, the first reaction that he had when he saw her was anger. He thought that his lady had pretended to be Little Fox, so he pushed her away at once. The more she claimed to be Little Fox, the angrier he got. He bombarded her with so many questions, but she could not even answer one. If you really are Little Fox, answer me this one important question. Where is our baby? Where is the child in your belly? Shocked, the woman could not answer his question. In fact, she could barely remember anything. The woman was still wearing the clothes from the enemy that he hated the most. She never stopped trying to hug him, as he was the only one that she remembered after escaping. Chen, however, acknowledged her plea with a sneer and said that Little Fox had never left his side. As soon as she heard his words, she went crazy. Her bloodshot eyes clearly showed her indignation. She screamed at him and claimed that the other woman was an imposter. She was ready to kill and slash the woman into pieces. Her vile visage was something that Yanchen had never seen. To him, she was a crazy woman. Driven by anger, Yanchen hit her with a fatal attack. He was simply unconvinced that the woman was his wife. Although he kept telling himself that he did was the right thing, the look of astonishment and disbelief in the woman's eyes still haunted him. It made him feel so uncomfortable that he left at once. Every now and then, he would think about the woman, and his heart would ache for her. If the woman was really Little Fox, she must be really hurt by his action. The thought of her suffering was suffocating for him. He could not imagine how much pain she must have endured seeing the person she trusts hit her with a fatal blow. Shijio, tomorrow I will. He looked up and stopped talking, for Gu Shijio was no longer there with him. He was alone by the hills. On the other end of the wizardry barrier, there was a hill just outside of Tianju Hall. A woman was sitting with her knees hugged tightly in her arms. Intently, her eyes lingered on the moon in a sentiment of longing. A man stood by her side quietly. The woman was the one person who looked exactly like Lan Weihu. By her side stood the man who healed her, Duan Mayan. I like this place. The woman finally broke the silence. Tears choked her words, but her smile never left. I was born and brought up here. I have my friends and the man I love here. I have never once thought that I didn't belong. Weihu, you have the royal blood of the Blue Fox family in you. The Blue Fox planet is your home, a place where you truly belong. You are the survivor of a legitimate royal bloodline, which is the purest form of all. You are even nobler than the royalty from the Blue Fox planet. Should you choose to return, the Blue Fox Emperor will be so pleased. You could be the successor. I am not interested in the throne. Are you only interested in Yanchen? It seems that the man already has another Lan Weihu by his side. You clearly saw with your own eyes how precious she was to him when they snuck across the border. Chapter 2653. I never believed in destiny. He did not hesitate to hit you with such a fatal strike that almost took your life. Without the soul-sustaining herb that belongs exclusively to the Blue Fox planet, you would be long dead by now, killed by the hands of the man you love. Duan Mayan marked his words with bitterness and hostility. The woman's lashes trembled. I still have friends, she said. The statement was clearly meant to hit back at Duan Mayan. Friends? Duan Mayan teased. They have yet to find out about your identity. Once they do you think that they will still think of you as a friend? Your death will become the only thing that they wish for in their lives. Little Fox, you should not be so naive. It is all because of your murderous acts of killing and burning the innocent. You are the one who is responsible. It is all because of you. Weihu, the law of the jungle applies everywhere. The weak will always give ways to the strong. These people were killed because they are vulnerable, and vulnerability is a sin. They are just like the farm animals that are bred to be killed. Their weakness has doomed them for eternity under humans' ruthless control. To us, all the people here are relatively uncivilized, like the farm animals. Nonsense. It is all but an excuse for your invasion. Weihu, the Blue Fox planet has been stricken by too many disasters, which has made it no longer habitable for our people. The Blue Fox Emperor sent us out to find a better place to stay. We serve only the royalty there. In other words, we serve you too. You should not be too harsh on us. I am no royalty. You are. In that case, am I entitled to give you orders? Absolutely. Great. Now take your troops and go back to where you came from. Weihu, you may give me orders once you return to the Blue Fox planet, and accept your title as a princess. Why must I wait until my return? Because the heavenly order shall not be breached. I never believed in destiny. I do, and I am afraid that you have to as well. I know that you can single-handedly take me back to the Blue Fox planet, so what is the point of our conversation? I cannot fight you, even if I am reluctant to go. I do not like to take people away by force. I would like you to come with me willingly. You are already forcing me. In that case, I hope you surrender to it. Is that why you sent the impostor to him? To break my heart? She is not entirely an imposter. Her body has been made from the cells of your body. Her body is no different than yours, in fact. The main difference is your soul. There was a moment of silence before the conversation continued. Whose soul is that? Where did she come from? About that, I am afraid that I cannot tell you more. The heavenly secret must not be spilled. Weihu, ignorance is bliss in this case. You once said that what he loved was your soul, not your body. What you saw proves otherwise. He cannot even tell the difference. Your body is all that matters to him, regardless of whose soul is in it. The woman said nothing more, but sorrow filled her eyes. Duan Mayan reached out to her and said, "You should stop thinking about him. Let's go." Should she give up? The woman closed her eyes and remained deep in her thoughts. He was the man that she had truly loved for centuries. How could she let him go just like that? Chapter 2654. There are still plenty of opportunities. Lan Weihu clenched her fists in frustration. She really wanted to kill the imposter. Do you want to kill her? It is easy. Duan Mayan offered help. He seemed to have read her thoughts. The woman stared at his smile and was somewhat perplexed. By this hour, she should be asleep. I can take you there, and you can kill her. He offered his hand again and asked, "Would you like to go?" The woman stayed very still. What is the matter? Are you afraid that you might see Yinshan embracing the naked woman in his arms? Are you worried that he might attack you again? She sat quietly in contemplation. Meanwhile, Duan Mayan looked at her fixedly, but his temperament became soft and gentle. After a while he softly said, "Here, look at me." The lady seemed to be hypnotized all of a sudden. Slowly, she lost her consciousness, and there was only one thought in her head, which was to kill the imposter. A shade of emerald green slowly replaced her pitch-black eyes. At the same time, a steady flow of energy slowly took over her body like currents. Abruptly, she raised her arms and launched a strike across the fields, thus chopping the long grass into half. It looked as if the grass had been burnt off. Duan Mayan grasped her hand by the wrist. "Little fox, let's go. I will let you do what you wish to do." He was about to perform a spell but was startled by a visitor nearby. "Little Shijio, you are here so quickly. Never mind. I shall postpone the trip. There are still plenty of opportunities." He snapped his fingers before Lan Weihu's eyes to wake her up from the state of hypnosis. She opened her eyes and quickly freed her hand from his grasp. "What have you done?" "Nothing much. Little fox, we should go. You are still very weak, so you need to rest. I will escort you back." Without further ado, Duan Mayan took her hand and shoved her into a flying machine that was parked nearby. The machine rose into the sky and disappeared almost instantaneously. Not long after their departure, Gu Shijio showed up at the same spot. She took a turn around the fields trying to catch some sense but was disappointed. There was only fresh air that surrounded the hill. There was no lead for her to trace. Nonetheless, the withered grass on the ground caught her attention. Unfortunately, as the grass was all yellow and shriveled, she could not tell exactly when it was cut. Troubled, Gu Shijio could not help but wonder if her sixth sense had failed her this time. It would seem that no one had been here. She yawned as she looked up at the moon. It was already very late at night. She knew that she should rest, for the sake of her child. In Tianju Hall, Lan Weihu could be seen lying on her bed. She was not asleep yet, and there was a little earpiece in her hand. "Master, Gu Shijio will be going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow, along with Yinshan and me. I will try to delay her," she hoarsely whispered. "No need. Let her come to me." A stern voice replied from the other end. I will not be comfortable there. I am worried that my identity will be exposed." "Don't worry. I will readjust and lower the sound waves in the base. You should be safe. There should not be a problem of keeping your identity concealed, unless you are an idiot. Also, there will be a good show for you tomorrow." "Yes." Meanwhile, Gu Shijio had just returned to her house. As soon as she arrived, a silvery blue jade on her waist started flickering. Surprised, she answered it and overheard a conversation between a man and a woman. Attentively, she listened to every word that they said and was pleased. "You have finally revealed who you truly are," she said scornfully. She had bugged Lan Weihe's room earlier to get some evidence. Chapter 2655. The wolves are coming. Gu Shizhou pondered about the details of the conversation between the clone Lan Weihu and her master from the Blue Fox planet. A sudden realization hit her that she had not detected any sound waves when she sneaked into their base earlier. Being a great deity blessed her with more or less an indestructible body, the sound waves did not bother her at all the last time that she was there. So why was the fake Lan Weihu concerned about the sound waves? Was it because her body was weaker than normal? Was she a clone? Or was she using Little Fox's original body? Also, who was the person's master? What did he mean when he said there would be a show tomorrow? Whatever it was, Gu Shizhou looked forward to the day. In the base of the Blue Fox family, Admiral Guan Yining was in a state of fury. All the vegetables and food that they had painstakingly collected were gone overnight, leaving nothing behind for his people. Moreover, so many of his ships had been destroyed, which basically magnified his losses over the last few days. Clearly, the man was frustrated. He could not understand how all this could happen. There was so much food in the storage. Even with the help of his ships, the delivery took more than 10 rounds just to send all the food from one point to another. How did everything disappear so mysteriously? Frustrated, he decided to ask Lan Yu about it. "The Lord has a storage space that can expand infinitely," Lan Yu nonchalantly said. Guan Yining was speechless. He started picturing the tender woman in his head. She had such a thin and slender figure that he could easily scoop her away with one arm. To his utter surprise, the small woman was able to move away tons of his food supply at once. What a mighty woman, he thought. For the first time in his life, he was in awe of a woman. At the same time, he was also intimidated by her. In his mind, she was perhaps the only person in the Starry Crescent land that possessed any formidable level of spiritual power. The use of spiritual power was against any logical sense or scientific advancement. As a member of the Blue Fox planet, Guan Yining was very proud of so many technological breakthroughs that his planet had witnessed. He had been to many planets ever since he started voyaging the galaxy, but he had never respected any of the inhabitants. In his eyes, they were merely uncivilized species. He could basically wipe out entire civilizations with ease. None of them was able to defend themselves from his power. It was beyond his expectation that he would one day meet such a deadly threat. Although the members from the Blue Fox planet had experienced such breakthroughs in technological advancements, they still needed food just like any other living civilization. Their overlooting had severely drained the sources of food in the Starry Crescent land. Therefore, the masses now lived in dire poverty. The accumulated food in their storage did not come easy, and yet there was no guarantee that they would have enough for breakfast the next day. Guan Yining quickly sent some men to scour for food, while he and his military officers discussed for a long-term solution. While having his discussions, he saw the general, along with the woman named Lan Weihu. Guan Yining felt rather confused as he did not understand why the general placed so much attention on the woman. Was she a survivor of the royal bloodline? Even if she were, the general would not have any authority to be around her. Had the general fallen for Lan Weihu? The general had always been an unfriendly and unapproachable man. What changed him this time? Guan Yining could tell that the general was behaving slightly differently over the past month. His behavior had become more and more unpredictable, and his whereabouts were always concealed. The soldiers did not feel close to the general anymore. "The moon looks beautiful. Did you enjoy watching it with a beautiful woman by your side?" Guan Yining went for it. "What concerns do you have?" Duan Mayan asked icily. "I have none. I was only asking if you had a great time." "General, the Lord has made us suffer a great deal. Not only has she destroyed our ships, but she has also stolen our food. Since you are in the mood to go out and watch the moon, I believe that you must have thought of a way to recover our stolen food. May I hear any suggestions from you, sir?" Chapter 2656. The wolves are coming, too. All the other soldiers kept their attention on Duan Mayan, eager to see how he would respond. Duan Mayan gave Lan Weihu a gentle tap on her shoulder and said, "You must be tired. Go to bed now." Lan Weihu brushed his hand away and walked away quietly. Apparently, she did not care to protect Duan Mayan's reputation in front of his men. Meanwhile, Guan Yining whistled scornfully. "General, the lady did not seem to care about you. I did not know that she is actually your type." Before he was done talking, his foot suddenly caught something, and he crashed into the ground. His face went down first, thus scratching his lips with bloody wounds. He quickly stood up again, and looked at Duan Mayan in disbelief. "General." Duan Mayan was one of the few members from the Blue Fox planet who possessed psychic powers, especially involving telepathy. He could move anything with his mind or kill anyone by controlling a gun with only his mental power. Though ruthless, he was a man who honored his followers with respect, as they had been through life and death together. Those were the good old days when he was still friends with them. Guan Yining was never afraid to tease him in the past, but things took a quick turn for the worse this time. Duan Mayan looked at him sternly in the eye and asked, "Are you done with your bullshit?" His icy tone sent chills around the place. Guan Yining finally admitted to his own failure. "I am sorry, sir. General, I was frustrated by the Lord's arrogance. She should be back in Tianju Hall by now. Should we take the opportunity and launch another attack? You have been leading the attack for 3 months now. Have you achieved anything yet?" "About that, we managed to break the turtle shell last time. Although they have sealed the hole, it is no longer the barrier that it used to be. I believe that we can shatter it this time if we use all of our explosives." "Dream on. The Lord is the one who created the barrier. Without her, perhaps you could break it after a few attempts. Now that she is back, I am certain that it is as solid as it was before. Moreover, she possesses both teleportation and invisibility skills. She even mastered the use of our weapons. Do you really think that you can achieve anything from the attack? You will only risk losing all of our ships." Guan Yining remained quiet. He did not know how to argue with the general, but he refused to give up. Should we let her go just like that? Should we just hide in our comfort zone? Of course not. The general acknowledged it with a confident smile. "She will be here tomorrow." Everyone who could hear the conversation got excited by the news. Guan Yining subconsciously clenched his fists as if he was ready to fight. They had lost to her because they were unprepared. This time, he believed that they were ready to defeat her, as long as they had time to plan out a proper comeback. "You should all come up with a proper plan to give the Lord a good challenge tomorrow," Duan Mayan commanded. "Yes." All of them answered in unison. "You are not allowed to do anything at your own will tomorrow. Everything must be done according to my commands." Duan Mayan added. None of his men objected. Instead, they acknowledged his authority firmly before going away. All kinds of coordination and manpower were poured in to prepare different ambushes and setups at different places. It was not an easy task to take the Lord down, so the soldiers had to spend the entire night fine-tuning and modifying their weapons to the highest level. When all was done, the sky was already brightly lit. After the long night of preparation, all of the soldiers were tired, but they looked forward to the day. Some of the soldiers had never met Gu Shiju, so they were eager to see her. As for those who had suffered losses, they could not wait to give her a taste of her own medicine. All in all, despite their tiredness, they were waiting eagerly for her arrival. They kept their guard up as they knew that she was equipped with teleportation and invisibility skills. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.